Good evening, gamers. What is going on? It is PM in the PM, episode number 1. That's right, world premiere of Pong and Mav in the PM. Thank you all for joining us tonight. My God, this chat is already lit. Look at this. We got so many great people already popping in here. Look, it is October 21st, 21, episode number 1 of a brand new podcast for myself and the great Mav. I am happy to be here. Look, fun speculation. This man is trying to build an empire, right? This man is trying to build a podcasting empire. And he has been gracious enough, first of all, to invite me to a new show. Second of all, to give me the lead chair in the USS Enterprise, right? He has given me the captain's chair. And that is great, but we are co-hosts here. You're going to see us both go both ways, on this channel. Look, this is a great time. I cannot believe I'm here, Mav. Look, let me introduce you, because fun speculation, aka Mav, right? The man building this empire, the man who is not afraid to eat plain cardboard animal crackers on camera while podcast. There they are, as we speak. The man who can now finally admit that Solo is a terrible movie. Finally can admit that. That's right. Fun speculation, aka Mav. If you've been lucky enough to be in some Xbox Live chats where Fancy, his amazing wife Kaitlin, gets mad at him, you know him as Brandon as well. But guess what? We call him Mav here. Mav, how the heck are you, brother? PM in the PM, episode number 1. What's going on?
Dude, hey. Who knew Pong was so good at intros? What's up, man? Hey, this is awesome. I want to just say it. I wanted to do like a one-on-one, like 2-person show ever since we started this, and dude, there's nobody that I wanted to do it more with. But you have your thing with Steel, and y'all have a 2-person thing going, and it's an amazing show. And I never wanted to take anything away from this, but it was like from that, and then I was like, hey, it's not going to. Like, it's going to hopefully just be a little bit different, right? And give us another opportunity to talk about some other stuff, because we do this all the time, Pong, where we deep dive on specific topics together. And we can sometimes, when we're playing games, we'll just like go off on this different stuff. And it just clicks. We did a show a few weeks ago, right? That still was like, it just felt too good not to like ask. Because like, okay, we gotta, even like, freaking relatives were saying, hey, that was a really good show, that you did. And I was like, they don't even know anything about gaming. So this means a lot that you agreed to do this. So thank you, sir. I am super excited for the future of this show, just like all the other shows that we have on this channel. And yeah, Empire, I don't know about that, but definitely we got a full slate now, right? And each thing has a different flavor. And I'm super happy that you have agreed to lead the way on this thing as well, because hey, people get sick of seeing me do all these intros and stuff all the time. So hey, let's let Pong have some more time in the sun. Now, Pong, there's a lot of stuff to talk about this week.
Yeah, there's lots of news. But look, on PM in the PM, what we kind of talked about, what you just described, was deep diving. So what we're going to be looking to do each week is to pick out 1, maybe 2, on a slow week, maybe even 3, but topics that you and I both have a lot of thoughts and opinions on, and we want to be able to go down as far as we need to go in the rabbit holes and discuss what we need to discuss. Like you said, Mav, on Acquisition Thursday, we did that. We had a fantastic time doing it. So it's only natural, obviously, that you and I get together to do something like this as well. But just to kind of give the audience a sense of where we're going, that's exactly what we're looking to do here. We're not going to be console centric here at all. This could be any topic from across the industry. It could be community topics. It could be anything that we come across that Mav and I decide that we want to get into in depth, I should say. So, you know what? That's where the show's going. First of all, before we get into what we have chosen to talk about this week, Let me give us a couple shout outs here. Let me give a lot of shout outs here, man. We've got so many great people. I'm just going to start at top here. So, of course, we've got Jasper Gaming in the house. We've got Sean Sue. Shout out to Sean Sue, Mod of the Year over on the Shop Podcast. Great to see you here, brother. Glad you're showing up. Nick's brother. Hey. Kaitlin, the amazing Kaitlin. Let me stop here on Kaitlin real quick. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she did the graphics as always on this, Mav. Is that true or false?
Yeah, she does like all the graphics, the thumbnails and stuff. I do the videos, like, and a lot of times I'll take her artwork and I'll use that in the videos. So that's what you saw on the intro for this was her graphics put together and cut together to make
that's absolutely amazing. Kaitlin, you are a rock. And obviously, again, happy anniversary to both of you. First of all, I said it in Twitter, obviously, but again, happy anniversary. The power couple of the community, Mav and Kaitlin. But Kaitlin, shout out to you for your graphics. You are amazing. You should go pro for sure. So you do some crazy good stuff. Phasma, good to see you. I haven't talked to you in a little bit. It's been probably 3 nights since we've been in live over on with Mav and Kaitlin and everybody over there. So good to see you. Micah Ford, it was good to see you, brother.
You're botting a little bit, Pong. I don't know if it's cutting out on you. Yeah, it's starting to cut on you. And while it's getting addressed, I want to Grumble had asked in the chat if this is going to go to the podcast hosting places as well. So this will end up being on Spotify, on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and more. But when you start a new show, it takes some time, like a week or so, sometimes for those to show up. So look out for those next week. Let's do audio test, Pong. Let's see if it's
test.
Yeah, it's back. It's back.
Yeah,
like internet spike or something.
I see things dipping a little bit. It wasn't too bad, but thanks for letting me know. Obviously. Grumble, great to see you. Thank you for that asking that question so Mav could clarify that. Outbreak Podcast, always good to see you, my friend. General Spartan, awesome to see you as well. Crazy Louie, the man who has earned that name, absolutely fantastic to see you, sir. Who else? HTK brother Peter is in the house from NLG. Awesome to see you here. Of course, the amazing Chris Jones is in the house.
Jones.
That's right. Lord Ruffness. Hey, Lord. Good to see you always, brother. You're always hanging out, supporting. Great to see you there as well. Anybody else in the chat, if I missed you, I'm sorry. Sappho, great to see you as well. Look, Mav, we have a lot to talk about because Xbox did their thing. Xbox execs were out in force, specifically this week. Mr. Phil Spencer, of course, Uncle Phil, who never will shy away from an interview, much to some people's dismay and sometimes to our enjoyment, because Phil is out there. He is transparent. He is talking. He loves to talk about Xbox. So he was out there in the news. And then the mysterious one, the man we never see, right? The Loch Ness monster, the Bigfoot of Xbox executive team, Matt Booty, shows up out of the blue. And so we actually got a lot of good nuggets from both of them. So, I'm ready to dive in. Mav, are you ready to dive in? I'm PM in the ready. PM. All right.
Yeah, Matt Booty brought a lot of booty with him.
We're going to get to that.
That interview. So let's start with the big.
Let's start with Phil.
Yes. The head man. All right, let's go.
Let's go. So Phil, for anybody who doesn't know, Phil went on a Wall Street Journal. They had a Tech Live special where they interviewed people from all over the tech world. It wasn't game specific. It was, just across the entire board. And Phil happened to be one of the people they interviewed. He was interviewed by Sarah Needleman. First of all, shout out to Wall Street Journal for locking your stuff behind a paywall in 2021. Look, if you want to do that with your video, that's fine. But could you give us a transcript, right? Could you just give us a written transcript of the interview, please? Not all of us want to pay your stupid $8 a month or whatever the heck it is, okay? Look, this is 2021. Come on, get with it, Wall Street. All right, anyways. Great interview. The clips that have been out there now, people have dissected each and every way, but it was a shorter interview, but he did have some key points that came across. And number one, let's start with the Game Pass numbers. This has been a talking point ever since Strauss, head of Take-Two, and he had a joint interview in which Strauss seemingly let slip that they were at 30 million or close to 30 million Game Pass subscribers. That created a huge storm across the internet. Everybody debating whether or not Strauss would know those numbers, how close they could be, blah, blah, blah. So it came out. Of course, Sarah Needleman, being a good journalist, asked Phil about this yet again and said, "Hey, Phil, we heard you might be at 30 million. What number are you really at?" And of course,
what's the real number, Phil?
What's the real number, Phil? And of course, Phil gave his classic chuckle. He knew this was coming, of course. He's already got it backed up, and he went straight into PR mode, as Phil is so good at doing, and said, "Hey, look, we're sticking to the 18 million public number that we gave a while back." His direct quote was, "We're sticking with our last public number, 18 million subscribers. We will announce another number at some point," unquote. So that was his direct quote as to what he had to say about this. Mav, I'll start with your thoughts on this. What did you think of his reaction? Where do you think, we've heard some other things this week as well, which weren't a part of this interview. Some interesting documents, public documents came out because obviously Microsoft has to report earnings from their higher ups, their executive team. Those earnings have to be made public, and they didn't give concrete numbers, but they gave percentages. And for anybody who doesn't know, because the executive team is rewarded based upon the Game Pass subscriptions, they have a certain growth metric that they have to hit. And this is a yearly growth metric, and Microsoft was aiming internally for 48% growth year over year for Game Pass starting last June. And through this June, they hit 37% growth.
Yes.
Now, we've gotten some public numbers during that time frame, direct from Xbox and Microsoft, as far as what their figures were. Some people did the math, and came out to, even though they didn't hit their goal, it still was good growth. Obviously, their internal goals were based upon their thoughts that they were going to have Halo Infinite last year. When they made those goals, they did not know Halo was going to be delayed. So those goals were kind of inflated due to that. So they still had a great number, 37% growth. So people came out, figured out that based upon the numbers we were given, they're somewhere as of June, end of June, they were somewhere at the 20 million mark or so. So, again, growth did slow down. But Mav, what did you take away from his comments? Where do you think we're at with these Game Pass numbers? Did you take anything else away from it all, from his answer? What are your thoughts, brother?
So he obviously, like he said again, they're waiting for some specific number to announce, right? And we don't know what that is, right? I think that there's a lot of reasons why they're guarded with these numbers, and it's not just because they want to be like secretive, right? There's investor stuff going on, there's bonus stuff going on with executives, there's all of these different things, right, that they got to think about. And putting just random numbers out there, right, just at every interview that you have, it's not necessarily the best strategic move for a company that is focusing on subscriptions as their main base of revenue now. I think is kind of where they're going with this, right? They're going to grow organically over a long period of time. So things like that aren't just going to be like spurted out randomly, right? So them asking him again and him just giving the same, the last public number was 18 million, as completely expected, 100%. I've seen some people say like, "Hey, why doesn't he just say the number?" Well, because there's all those reasons why, right? All those reasons why. Now, what I found a lot more interesting than that specifically was the numbers that did come out from those earnings reports, because that kind of gives us some insight into. I saw some kind of clickbaity articles that said like Microsoft fails to meet internal goals for Game Pass or and things like that. And
Journalist get a
like,
journalist.
yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
it is what it is. Last year they far exceeded that as well,
Right.
and they had a
Right.
higher goal last year. They had like
Yep.
I think a
50.
75%, and they hit like
Something
80
like that.
something percent, some
Yeah, something
crazy,
like that.
something
Yeah.
crazy. Whereas this year they had a 48%, they hit 37. Now, this also goes into why it was such a hard decision to delay a game like Halo Infinite, right? These things play a huge factor with subscription growth. All of the growth that they've done so far with Game Pass is without one of those huge AAA
Correct.
games, right?
Correct. Yep.
So when they make those when they make those goals and they look at their lineup ahead, they know how much these things play a factor. And when you don't have Halo Infinite as what was planned, then it shows two things for me. It shows how much of an impact a game like that could potentially have, right?
Mhm.
On
Yep.
subscriptions. And it also shows the commitment that Xbox has to putting out quality games over meeting demand for subscriptions, right? Because they played that game for a whole year, knowing the fact that, hey, they may not actually take a hit on their growth of Game Pass, right?
Right.
So that's an internal decision that they have to make. That is not an easy decision to make, right? That
Right.
was one of the hardest decisions I think they probably had to make, but I think they made the right one.
Mhm.
Obviously now, and then we're going to see how well Halo Infinite is going to grow the subscription base when it releases
Mhm.
this year. And I think the next earnings report you have, where you have these percentages and stuff, maybe you're going to see them go potentially above their goals, right?
Right. Right.
So it's always going to be this like up and down thing. The good news is it's growing, and it's still growing at a good pace, right? So there's no like doom and gloom or anything like that. It is all positive news at the end of the day. And this holiday, because of Halo Infinite's delay last year, we're
Mhm.
getting a much bigger holiday this year, right?
Right.
Because we got
Right.
Forza, Halo Infinite, Age of Empires is about to launch, all of these things, and yeah, kudos on them for deciding to make that delay last year, and I'm excited to see how it evolves because the whole industry's changing. We're talking about subscription numbers with gaming now
Mhm.
as the metric instead of console sales, right?
Correct. Yep.
And we've talked about this before. This is going to be what the future is going to be, right? So it's really interesting. I know he said some other interesting things as well, though. Pong.
Yeah, he did.
What do you
And
think?
I think you're spot on, Mav, as far as the Game Pass stuff goes. Again, it wasn't the doom and gloom, the headlines, of course, those are the clickbait headlines. And again, people need to read beyond those and really look at it from just a much, you got to take a step back and go, okay, so they didn't hit their internal numbers, but they didn't hit that number without Halo. So, and we know what Halo's going to do. And they have Forza Horizon 5 this year as well. So they're going to get a good idea of what a first party triple A game can do for those subscription numbers coming up this holiday. They're going to be slightly less than what they probably could do if all of the consoles were available everywhere like they want them to be. Unfortunately, they're not right now. So there is going to be some of that holding it back. But I think Game Pass in general, even if we take those numbers, if you look at the growth, that means they're sitting at somewhere right today probably at around 23 million to 25 million, right? Which is still a huge number ahead of where they thought they were going to be at one point when they first started Game Pass. And I think going into this holiday season, they can definitely get to that 30 million mark with Halo and with Forza, as long as they can get enough consoles in people's hands and as long as xCloud continues to grow everywhere else around the world where that is vital, like like Korea, like Japan, those types of places. As long as they can continue growth there, and they've seen some really, it might be baby steps, but they've seen definitely an increase in interest over there in those parts of the world where maybe consoles aren't the biggest deal, but everybody plays on mobile. So I think that all of that combined can push them to that 30 million mark after the holidays. And I think that they are waiting for that milestone to announce. Like you said, Mav, there's reasons why they don't talk about the exact numbers until they're ready. Many of them are investor considerations, but some of it definitely is they just want to celebrate certain milestones. And obviously, whatever they set those milestones at, they're going to wait. Next up on the Phil interview was acquisitions, of course, one of our favorite topics here on the fun speculation.
Acquisitions. Talk about acquisitions. Let's go. Heck yeah. Man.
So, of course, again, Miss Sarah Needleman, she brought up the acquisitions because, of course, that's been non-stop newsmaker, especially when it comes to Xbox. But we've seen, Sony make 5 purchases over this past year, whether you consider them small or whether you consider them significant. It does not matter. They are out there buying. Everybody knows what the industry is going through right now. So, of course, she brought it up to Phil because she knows how much Phil loves to talk about it. But Phil gave his standard, pretty standard answer. However, there was a couple key words in here that caught my eye, and we'll see where Mav's at with this. But his direct quote from the question was, "We're definitely not done. There's no quota, no timeline where I have to go acquire studios by a certain time. But if we find a studio where we have a good fit, absolutely." What I took away very quickly, and I'll toss it over to Mav, but what I took away from this was the word definitely. This is a word that you would point to psychologically. He didn't say, hey, we're not done yet. He didn't go, he goes, we're definitely not done. Okay, when you say the word definitely, that means psychologically in the back of your mind, subconsciously speaking, you are so sure of what's happening because you already have things that the minute acquisition is said, the word acquisition, your brain's already popped off what you have lined up right now or what talks you're in, right? So therefore he goes, we're definitely not done. There's no quota. Quota can be taken a couple different ways, right? So we talked about this during acquisition shows. Like, we know that Xbox, that Microsoft has got this giant war chest of cash, and this cash is sitting there not doing them any good with inflation and everything else going on in the world. It's actually probably losing value as we speak. So there's this idea that Microsoft would like to spend a certain dollar amount across the board, not just Xbox, but across the board to get rid of this cash because they'd rather have that tied up into something that's going to make you money, like a studio for Xbox, right? That's an investment. You'd rather have it there than just sitting in the war chest. So there's been this idea that, maybe that they have a certain mark, right, that they want to hit for the amount of teams and the amount of devs. This quota comment here to me basically said to me, there's no limit, right? There's no limit. Yeah. If they go out and buy a publisher tomorrow, that does not mean they stop per se. That means that if they see something else that they want, Phil has the green light to go ahead and do that. There is no quota. He doesn't have to have a certain amount of teams, but there's really no limit to that teams either. So if he decides that he wants to keep doing this and that they are in the growth phase right now with Game Pass, and that's going to continue, then he will go do whatever's necessary. And he's got the blessing from Satya to go ahead and do whatever it takes to get where they need to be. So I think that quota thing was definitely a good line. And then obviously no timeline. We already know that, right? Mav and I have talked about this consistently everywhere we've been. There's no timeline. Like, people always want to put timelines on acquisitions, but what Phil's saying here is, look, there's no timeline because with a publicly traded company, they don't get to determine when they announce that. When the deal's done, they've got a certain amount of time before they got to announce it. So he can't control that. If tomorrow the deal closes on a publisher that's public, guess what? They're going to have to announce it within, I believe it's 14 days. So he doesn't have control over that. But private companies, now they can string those along. They can pick and choose where they want to announce those. We've seen that with some of the smaller studios. So if they want to wait for a show or a video game awards or whatever the case may be, they can go ahead and wait on those and announce those when they're ready, right? So, but there's no time frame here. They're not going to cap this at, we got to have all the studios we're going to get within the next year. That's not how the industry is working. That's not how business works. So we're going to be talking about acquisitions for a long time. And then obviously the good fit quote, Fit, again, is a great word to use because it can mean a million different things. We have already heard plenty of times how they want to look for devs, studios, publishers that would work within their system, that would work together with them in partnership. That's why the ZeniMax deal happened, is because they've been working with Bethesda and those studios from ZeniMax for so long. They had good working relationship. However, if Phil is serious about going to the East and getting his foot in over there and wants to get, you know, a team from over there, guess what? Some people are going to say, well, how does that doesn't, you know, they have a different management style over there. How is that? You haven't worked closely with a lot of teams over there. How does fit can mean, look, it's a need, right? We need to be in over in Japan. We need to make our mark. So it's a fit for us to go get that. Again, leaving it wide open so that he can't get cornered by people if they make an acquisition and people want to say, but Phil, this doesn't jive with what you've been telling us this whole time. He can go, nah. Sure it does. This is how it does. He's using great words here. He is a PR expert when it comes to these interviews, and that's what came through here. Master, yeah, absolutely, master class in how to do these interviews, giving people information but not giving too much. So, Matt, I said my piece on this. Now, did you have anything different? Did you pull anything different on here? You got a different perspective, or you know, where you at with the acquisition talk that Phil gave?
There's one word specifically that I want to concentrate on.
Go.
One word. I. That's it. That's the power word in this whole sentence, right? Just think about this, right? Phil Spencer says, we're definitely not done. There's no quota, no timeline. Where I have to go acquire studios by a certain time. But if we find a studio where we have a good fit, absolutely. Where I have to acquire. Who do you think's driving the business behind Xbox, right? Like, it's Phil Spencer. When we look at, like, hey, Phil and how much weight he's pulling now, like he's throwing out to the Wall Street Journal. You know, like
kind of sounds like a man sitting at the big boys table at a $2 trillion company with the backing of the head of said $2 trillion company, doesn't it?
It does, man. Shout out to real quick too. Shout out to Kid Smooth, $2 super chat. He says, "Hey, you guys
kid,
make a great team." Dude, that means a lot coming from Kid Smooth, who's great at what he does as well. So appreciate you, man. That's why we started this thing, because I think we do make a great team. Thanks for Pong for doing it with me. Now, I means a lot, right? It's a one-letter word. It's a one-letter word, but it carries so much weight in this sentence, right? Because what I envision now is Phil on the phone making phone calls to his buddies in the industry, right? Saying, hey, you know, we're still thinking about doing this. We're still thinking about doing that. You know, like, where are you at with this? And he's developing these relationships. He's traveling to Japan, doing things there. You know, he's trying to grow, which he's also said in a different interview that they want to increase their presence around the world with studio development and broaden their talent, right? So he's going out and doing all these things, and you know, he's making these conversations with these publishers and these developers, and it shows that, hey, when the right fit is there, when the right situation happens, he's going to pull the trigger.
Yep.
Right. And when he says the other word that I want to focus on, definitely, that is an extremely strong word to use in an interview with the Wall Street Journal. Mm-hmm. Right. This is not something where they would have used to say, like, we feel like we're in a good place right now. We will look at something if the situation presents itself. Right. That's the typical kind of PR speak that we would have seen in the past. They can't just go out here and say, hey, yeah, we're just looking to buy studios out the ass, guys. We're just like, hey, who wants to come and work for Microsoft? We got to check. He's not going to do that. But when he's talking to the Wall Street Journal and he uses things like, we're definitely not done, that sends a message.
Exactly.
Right? That sends a strong message. And he's very careful in the past about the words that he uses, and including going back to even like his first things that he said at E3 and stuff, when he's talking about the future of Xbox and how he's going to change things and the order that he's going to do things in. Everything that he's actually kind of presented at the time has actually happened and systematically in that same order, with winning the trust of the community back, working to rebuild the development studios, or working on their first party lineup, and everything has sequentially actually happened in that specific order. And this holiday, we're going to start to reap those benefits of that first party lineup, right?
Right.
That they've been putting in all the work, and then it's looking bright for the years ahead. But when he says we're definitely not done, this also goes into the fact that all the people that said, why you guys keep talking about acquisitions? Why you guys keep talking about this? Why you guys keep talking about that? Right? Because they're telling us to talk about it.
Yep.
I mean, he goes in an interview with the Wall Street Journal and says, we're definitely not done acquiring studios. What are we supposed to take from that other than, hey, something's going to happen? And I've even seen other articles now kind of shifting focus. Instead of saying, hey, we're sick of this acquisition talk, now they're saying it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when, right?
Correct.
I think he came across so strongly with this because there's already something close to being done behind the scenes, or has been done that has not been announced. Just like the Game Pass numbers, they're going to announce things when they're ready. Beforehand, when they announced studio acquisitions, they did it 5 at once the first time, right? Then they went and added another 2. Then they added ZeniMax. They're not just going to go randomly announce one at a time. I think they're building something more, working with some of these relationships, and we don't know exactly what's happening, when it's going to happen, but I think definitely their hands are in a lot of fires right now, and it's just I'm just curious who it's going to be and when it's going to be that it's announced.
Yeah,
So,
and
hey,
you got to remember when you got to remember too, Mav, when Phil's doing these interviews, especially with a Wall Street Journal, but anytime, right?
Yeah,
he's not just Uncle Phil, right? He's not just the head of Xbox, the guy we know as the gamer, the guy who comes out and does all the stage stuff and introduces all this. He's not that guy. When he's speaking, yes, he's speaking to us gamers, but he's also speaking to investors. He has to be very careful about what he says. What he says can affect the stock market. Okay, I can't imagine having this pressure. I can't imagine that if you and I had to come on and do PM in the PM every Thursday, and something we said on here could cause a dip or cause the stock market to shoot up and cost people millions, billions of dollars, right? I can't imagine. But with him in the position that he's in, that's where he's at. He has to be careful. So he does not come out and say words that he does not mean. Now, can he make mistakes? Absolutely. He's made mistakes. When he came out and talked about VR in the past, we'll talk about it here in a minute. You know, he made some promises, right? And it didn't happen, right? So again, that can happen. However, he's gotten to the point now in his career, and now that he's at the big boys table at this $2 trillion company, this man has got so much riding on almost every single word that he comes out and says. If he came out tomorrow and said, Microsoft, hey, guess what? We've decided we're not going to make consoles anymore. Do you know what they would do, right? So he can't just willy-nilly say what he wants to say. But when he comes out and like you said, like I said, when he uses a word like definitely, there's something already there, because he's speaking not to us gamers all the time who like to talk about acquisitions, but he's talking to investors, and he's talking to the rest of the industry saying, look, we're out here. We're on the prowl. We probably already got some things in the works. So yeah, I'm going to come here and say definitely. Right? Yeah, definitely. That's huge. Those words are key. So when Phil talks, that's why you have to kind of dissect it, because it's not just a normal dude, the guy that we know, the laughing guy, the nice guy that we know that interacts with people on Twitter. He's representing a major pillar in a $2 trillion company, one of the most powerful, wealthiest companies in the world. And he has to be careful about what he's saying. He can't say whatever he wants to. So when he says something, it has meaning behind it, even the small stuff. So I think that's important. Yeah, I like your eye stuff. That definitely is a change. That definitely is,
man. Like, I just know it stuck out to me instantly because I mean, I accidentally say, hey, babe, we got to go to my car. Like sometimes, just like being an idiot, you know, like just right. Speaking all the time, right? But like, I don't know. I've never heard him actually do that before, right?
Yeah.
And if you read it, for some reason, it just keeps sticking out to me. And I don't think it's a matter of like he's being cocky or
No.
anything. I think it's
No,
just a
no.
matter of confidence that he knows
Yeah.
how much control he has over the future of what Xbox is doing within Microsoft. Because, like you said, he's sitting at that big boy table, and we also got to get it to. Hey, Geezer Prime hit us with
Yep.
the $10 super chat. Geezer, you're absolutely amazing. He bought a hoodie last week. I hope it's comfy. I hope it's comfy. He says, "Here's a little seed money to help you fund your new adventure, Pong and Mav epic combo." Thank you, dude, so much.
Thanks a lot, Geezer.
I
Appreciate you,
appreciate the
brother.
support. And we
Yeah.
got a new member to the Speculators, the channel members. Tony Grasso, thank you so much.
Oh, of course. Tony, brother. Good to
channel,
see you.
bro.
Good to see you, man.
Appreciate that.
Tony's been around. Yeah.
Oh, heck yeah. Tony's awesome.
Yep.
And we got 66 people watching our first show live right now, Pong. So
Kind of crazy.
That means a lot to us, dude. Just like
Dude.
our first random show we did impromptu on a Thursday, you know,
Yeah.
it means a lot that you guys are here. So appreciate everybody here.
It boggles my mind. Can you imagine being in an auditorium right now, Mav, with you and I sitting up there in a couple chairs and looking out and seeing 66 people sitting out there, dude, in the audience, wanting to just come and chill with us and listen? That still boggles my mind. So appreciate every single one of you. Nothing but love and respect, as I always say. You guys are absolutely amazing. You are why we are here. Otherwise, Mav and I would just be on Xbox Live right now doing this same dang thing. Yeah, just between us and whoever happened to be in our party, right? So this is fantastic. I love you all. Thank you for being here for sure. So then just to finish up with Phil. Now, there wasn't a whole lot of clips about this. A lot of people didn't make a big deal about this. I just heard I didn't get direct quotes from him at all, but I got the gist of what he did say during the interview. They actually brought up VR to him and his thoughts on VR. Again, Phil made that promise with the Xbox One X that there would be VR. And a lot of people still to this day, obviously for narratives, for their own console warring BS, a lot of people still bring up the fact that that is a lie that Phil did make. Again, from my standpoint, it wasn't a lie because at the time, guarantee you they were working on that project. From a business standpoint, things change, right? Everything changed. And maybe in order to get Game Pass to where it is now, he had to cut something because the coffers weren't open per se like they are now. So he had to cut something out, maybe from a budget standpoint, to make that work. And he sacrificed VR for it, right? Or they just analyzed what was happening. They analyzed the industry. They've seen what a small percentage was, and it was even smaller back then, of total sales, what it was going to cost them in R&D, what it was going to cost them to get it out to the public. And it just didn't make business sense to continue forward with VR at that time, right? So they shelved it. Okay, things happen like that. But they brought it up to him in this interview, and what he said is he loves what everybody's doing, whether it's Sony, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Valve, everybody in the VR space, he loves what's happening. He thinks that it is a part of the future of the gaming industry, and he's happy for everybody who is out here, experimenting and doing the tech work, right? Basically doing the leg work to get VR to a stronger position. And he is happy that there are people into this space, and he congratulated them and said, it's a great job. Love what you guys are doing, right? Obviously didn't talk about really, he reiterated again that they're not interested in moving into VR at this point. It's not something that's on the table right now. And I can totally understand that. So, Mav, did you have any thoughts on this? I don't think either one of us are really big VR guys, but
no,
did you have some? You have any thoughts?
I have a few, right? So first off, I want to say I think that potentially Phil, because he's been with Xbox so long, has burned in his brain the Kinect a little bit as well, right? Yeah. And what can happen to your business when you're riding high, when you got great momentum and you're doing things and your focus is where you believe in the right place, and then you start to chase a trend, right? And the trend at the time was the Wii with the motion controls. You saw PlayStation do the Move controllers, the PlayStation Eye, and you had Xbox do the Kinect. They had this huge event, right? You remember all the ridiculous people wearing the ponchos and stuff, it's a huge thing. And it was a successful launch for the Kinect. It was actually one of the best launches for a add-on device or whatever, in history or something of gaming. But then you look at the other effects that it had on Xbox, right? Where you have to go and take development studios to make those games that are going to feature and support that technology. So you're looking at, okay, we have all of this talent, but now we got to allocate, like, how many studios do we put on VR projects?
Right.
How is that going to affect us in the future with our projects in our pipeline of AAA games, games that are going to be in Game Pass, where we know 95+%, according to the numbers of what is out there, of gamers are going to be expecting, right?
Right.
So you look at that and all those things add up, and it seems like maybe it just doesn't make a lot of sense for them right now. And they're just waiting for that time when it is a big enough market to where there is a big enough audience of people demanding and asking for it.
Right.
Which there are people out there, don't get me wrong, especially in the
Mm-hmm.
hardcore audience, which is a lot of the people that we speak to. But Xbox goes way far beyond the niche of hardcore gamers, right?
Right.
It goes farther into the casuals, where maybe a lot of people aren't going to want to go spend $400 or $500 on a VR headset and have very few titles come out for it, right? Because essentially that's what would probably happen, right?
Right.
And where we've seen before with Kinect, like it I think back to Lionhead and working on Fable Journey, right? And I think back to Rare making all those Kinect games and stuff like that. And for me personally, if you ask me, like, I really don't necessarily want that for Xbox, because if I am a VR guy, I feel like there's enough stuff on PC and other platforms that would satisfy me, right?
Right.
To where, hey, I have that avenue, which is already a high price, high cost gateway type entrance into VR gaming, right? Now you have like your mobile stuff, right, where you can get like your $200 VR headset and put your phone in it or whatever, right? And you can go that route. But if you want to go like console or PC stuff, I mean, you got to have a PC that can do the VR, or you got to have a console that can do VR. Plus, you got to get the VR headset, which is another $400 or $500, right? At that point, so the gateway into VR is not very low right now. It's actually very high. And if you are that kind of consumer, then you may just go out and probably get whatever kind of rig you need to get to experience the best of VR anyway. So
Yep.
there's a lot of factors that come into play. I think the space is going to continue to grow, especially because of the technology behind it and all the companies that are invested behind it. And we're going to see it become more of a mainstay. But until that actually happens, I don't see Xbox taking that leap. Now, did they say it in the past? Yes, but I don't know who was in charge of the decisions back then. We saw what they did with the HoloLens, and that became more of a commercial product, right?
Right.
Where we saw some really cool Minecraft demos and stuff like that. And I was like, that had me scratching my head. That had me interested, because for me, like, that seems like something more I would like to use in like a gaming way. Like
Right.
that's more of a social thing, right? But like, as far as VR itself, it doesn't really I know I'm being selfish, but it doesn't really affect me that much that they don't have it.
Right.
So,
Right.
but
Of
I look
course.
at it from the aspect of like, would it take away potentially from other stuff that I would enjoy? Then, and the answer to that could be yes. So, based on the past and what they've done with Kinect, so I'm not necessarily somebody that's pushing for that right now.
No, and I think it's important to realize too that just because they're not working on VR and AR, in fact, on the game side of things, Microsoft is still leading behind the scenes in commercial tech,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And so it's not like they're going to fall behind. Like all of a sudden VR explodes, right? All of a sudden there's like this thing where all of a sudden Sony, everybody's selling out of VR headsets. Everybody's got to have a VR headset because they've made this dramatic improvement. All of a sudden, Microsoft, Xbox are going to be sitting there with nothing, and they're going to have to start from the scratch, right? And to try to catch up to everybody. They're leading the way in commercial VR and AR tech, right? There's a huge industry out there that's using this tech, and they are still developing it. And I think that a key point with VR is that there's still a lot of problems with the technology itself. It's not marketable to the masses yet because there are still things that have to happen for it to take the next step, right? Wireless is one of them, obviously, and obviously screens and all the tech behind the power that it requires. All of that needs to catch up to a point where we can get, you know, a large percentage of the population comfortable with the idea of playing in VR, right? You still got the space aspect, you know, where it takes a big space for you to actually be able to play games in VR. Otherwise, you wind up, we've seen how many how many videos of people, you know, having bodily harm from doing VR, right? So,
Yeah.
so you know, there's a lot of different hurdles that VR has to get over first. There's going to be growing pains, and I think that Phil and his team at Xbox specifically are willing to sit back, let everybody else go through all those issues. This happens all the time. This isn't just an Xbox or Microsoft thing. Sony does this too. Again, you know, they completely demolished their plans for what they had for the PS4 when they saw the reaction to the Xbox One original unveiling, right? They were going to do the same things. They watched Xbox go up there, fall on their faces on stage and said, whoa, all right, cancel. Take all that DRM out of everything. You know, we're not going to do this stuff, right? So companies do this. They follow suit all the time and copy each other. And I think right now, Phil and his team are comfortable just sitting back, letting everybody else do the legwork. And then if it becomes viable, if there's a breakthrough in technology, Microsoft's going to be is going to be one of the first in line, in position, whatever it takes. They can go ahead and do what's necessary to bring their current stuff that they're using commercially up to par and bring a consumer product to market if that becomes viable for them to do. But until that point, I think they're willing to sit back, let everybody else do the legwork, see the mistakes, see the successes as well. And then when it's time, be ready to move into that space. Just right now, I think they're comfortable with where they're at. So I think it's a good plan.
I think they're laser focused on what they're trying to accomplish as well right now. And they don't want to take on something else that's going to potentially interrupt that, because they got so much stuff that they're doing right now. I missed a couple things earlier, Pong. So shout out to Lord Ruffness for also becoming a channel member. I missed that because it doesn't show up on this other chat screen for some reason, but I appreciate you so much, dude. Lord Ruffness is awesome. And also Jasper uses one of the perks that you get for being a member, where you get a free message, I guess, that gets highlighted. And he says, this is the new Island Boys. Pong and Mav emoji.
I'm not even gonna do it. I'm not even gonna do it. It's insulting to even do it.
No, you're not gonna do it. Let's
an island boy. Oh my god, it's awful.
We the island boy. All right, there we go.
Awful, man. Oh my god. Inside joke, people. You had to be at an X Live party. It was an interesting night, to say the least. We found some up and coming superstars in the music scene out of Florida. So it was an interesting night.
Superstars. Okay.
Am I exaggerating a little bit?
Maybe a little bit. Just okay. A tad, you know. We'll see. I don't know.
Well, I think we broke down Phil's interview really well. I think we covered all the major points, you know, and I think that was a good run right there for sure. And to add to that this week, again, the mysterious Matt Booty comes out of nowhere, right? Unexpectedly.
Bootylicious.
Shows Bootylicious. Yep. But he is one of the execs at Xbox that you just don't see a lot of, and you don't hear from a lot of, but he's got one of the biggest jobs, right? So for anybody who does not know, again, Matt Booty is the head of all Xbox game studios. So all their first party stuff, Matt Booty is in charge of, right? There's some things like ZeniMax, the ZeniMax deal, they're kind of on their own. They do their own, you know, they kind of run in their own ship because they're already kind of set. They can publish, they can do all that kind of stuff. I'm sure that there's still some reporting that happens, obviously, to Matt Booty, but Matt Booty focuses on like the Obsidians, the In Exiles, the 343s, you know, those studios, Ninja Theory. So he's got all of those underneath his plate. Now, Matt Booty has been in the industry for a very long time. He started out at Midway as a developer. So he was a developer for 5 years at Midway and a project manager at Midway, then moved up to head all of Midway's gaming division. Look, the guy knows what he's doing, right? So, and then he got hired by Xbox, and now he's the head of game studios. But Matt Booty doesn't speak a lot. He doesn't come out and talk, and I don't know why, because he's a great talker. The guy can talk. The guy can tell stories. The guy, it's not like he looks like he's shy or doesn't feel comfortable. He's very good. So he showed up on the Kind of Funny Gamescast. Shout out to Kind of Funny. Great show. I know some people, say, it's a PlayStation site, blah, blah, blah. Look, Greg Miller designed Kind of Funny. He's a PlayStation guy through and through, but he's also a big part of the media. As we've seen in the mainstream media over these past couple years, especially, they see what Xbox is doing. Greg Miller went out and put together XCast with Snowbike Mike Paris and why did I just drop his name? I forget the third guy. Gary Whitta. Thank you. Yeah. Gary Whitta. Originally it was Alana Pierce was there as well, but now she's working for Sony Santa Monica, so she doesn't do XCast anymore. But again, they're expanding, and the mainstream media is picking up on the fact that Xbox is doing so many good things that they can't be ignored anymore. So we still see the bias, and we still see a lot of PlayStation fans covering. But at the end of the day, for Kind of Funny to go out, they have had Phil on before and stuff like that. I think it's a great thing. And they, so Kind of Funny or the Kind of Funny Gamescast is Tim, Blessing, and Andy, and then they invited Snowbike Mike on as well to help interview Matt Booty. So Matt Booty shows up. Great interview. I think there was actually a lot more nuggets in the Matt Booty interview than there was from the Phil interview, right? Not only just because we don't see Matt Booty very often, but because he was really transparent, just like all the rest of them. They asked him a ton of questions. He came through with a lot of stuff. The first thing that I took away from, finally getting an interview with Matt Booty, where he was actually the sole focus of the interview, was that this guy, Phil, is a gamer. Right? Phil is that game guy. Phil is the guy that you can hit up on Xbox Live and jump into his Destiny game and he's going to play with you, right? That's Phil through and through. Phil, of course, did help with developing games as well, but he is a guy who likes to game. Matt Booty is a developer. This guy is a developer through and through. It was so cool to hear him. Like, he talked about, like, they asked him, like, what's the last game you played? And he pulled out some retrofitted Sega Game Gear. Right, and said, this is probably what I played on last. And he was talking about how he had gone out and got a custom screen for it and stuff. But he's like, but then he goes, honestly, in my free time, I'm sitting down and I'm coding. I'm working on my own games. Not games that he's going to publish, mind you, just games for the fun of it, because he wants to try to learn stuff, right? He wants to try to keep up with the industry. He wants to try new things, right? So he started talking about him developing these games. Mav, were you kind of caught off guard by that, or what would you think when he said that?
Matt Booty has always kind of flown under the radar for me a little bit, because he's always been there, and I see him at the shows and stuff, and he does his little intro before they like reveal some games and stuff like that, and it's always really cool. But I don't know if I've ever seen him in an interview like this, right? So when he's sat there and he's talking about making games and like in his free time and all this stuff. And I mean, that shows he has a passion for this, right? And he's not just a random executive that made his way up through the ranks. So by working for a corporation for a long time, you know what I mean? Like, I gain a lot of respect for these guys when they come out there and they talk, and you get to learn a lot more about who they are and their background and what they kind of do in their free time and all this stuff. And it's like, I'm pretty excited. I know that he's been around the industry for a long time, dating back to like Midway and all that stuff. You know what I mean? And he even talked about he still talks to a lot of those guys all the time on the phone and things like that, which I kind of found a little interesting. I don't know if we're gonna get into some of that, but like,
yeah, he said he hits up Ed Boon every once in a while and they talk stuff. Yeah.
So I just think that he's gained some like respect from me, just in the fact that I know more about his, I don't know if we want to say gamer cred, right? But like just that he does seem like he has a true passion behind this, right? Which I love. I love when these guys have a passion for what they're working in, right?
Right. So, exactly.
That's mainly my takeaway.
It's important, right? It is important, right? Because you don't know, like you said, you're not going to know anybody until you know them. But what we get from executives, especially on the Xbox side of thing, and it's funny, the Kind of Funny Games cast after Matt Booty had to go, and they were kind of doing the rest of their show afterwards, talked about that, right? They talked about, even though all of them are PlayStation guys, except for Snowbike Mike, of course, but all of them are mainly, they favor PlayStation, right? That's their console of choice. All of them respect the hell out of Xbox executives and people at Xbox, because they all come on the shows and talk and are transparent and aren't, these suits that just show up and give you the company line every time. They actually are personable people. They all said, it was kind of funny, Tim Geddes led off with that and said, I just love talking to Xbox people because of who they are. And I think that's what you got out of this for, Matt Booty not being in the public spotlight a lot. We finally got to see a little bit about him and get to know a little bit more about him. It was a great interview. It was a great question. And, him being forthcoming about how he just likes to dev. It was funny later on in the interview too, when they were talking about, when he was talking about visiting the other studios, he said that his, the rest of the team that comes with him when he goes and visits studios to see what they're working on, they actually behind his back came up with a code word when Matt Booty would be lost, because he would be walking through the studio. They're supposed to be doing this tour, at the time, they got to be at certain places, meet with certain people at certain times, but they'd be going through the studio and Matt would see somebody working on something that interested him. And all of a sudden he'd disappear and he'd be at somebody's desk watching how they dev and asking questions and what they were doing and that kind of stuff. And so his team would have a code word to say that Booty's lost again, right? And they have to go find him to get him back with the group so they can continue on with the tour. Yeah, find the Booty, right? So I just thought that was hilarious, and it goes to show how really deep into that he actually is. That is his forte. He is a coder, a dev through and through, even if he is in a different position, such as being the head of Xbox Studios. So I thought that was really cool. Now let's break down some points here. Again, there was a lot that came from the Booty interview. Honestly, there was a lot of cool stuff. So let's start here, Mav. What was interesting is they asked him if he could give him an update on Rare, right? Because the Everwild, because he was talking about creative-led teams, right? He kept reinforcing that. That was a theme throughout, right? Was that, no, our teams are creative-led, meaning that, we're not pushing them to make anything that they don't want to make. We want them to go ahead, and we've heard this many, many times. People still try to, concern troll over this and say, oh, they're going to meddle in what people do. No, Matt Booty iterated once again, 100%, hands off, go make the game that you're passionate about. Show us what you got. Right? That's all they want, right? They don't want these teams. They're not going to go in and tell them what to do. But they asked him specifically about Rare and about Everwild and this whole hard reset that we had heard about, right? That the team, they lost some people and that they were, possibly, basically going back to the drawing board with the game, right? Because they didn't know what they wanted to do with it. And he kind of squashed a lot of that, right? He came out and said that was too strong of a word. He said that this was just part of the development process, right? That it was a bunch of, he quoted somebody else saying that he had heard early on in his career that the, game development was just a bunch, 1,000 little decisions each and every day that add up to one big project at the end, right? So he just said, no, I think that's too strong of a word. This is just part of the dev cycle, that things happen, that creative decisions are made within that process. And he just thinks that the team is just not back to the drawing board, but just taking a step back and taking a look at where they want to take this world, because it is a brand new, fresh game. And one of his direct quotes was, we've shown a glimpse of a world. You've seen the art style that the team has got, but we want to get it right. So again, this goes back to them saying creative led. We're going to let you make the game you're passionate about. This goes back to all the things that we've heard from other dev studios saying, hey, it's a hands-off approach. They just give us the resources that we need and let us go make what we need to. And we've got all the time we need to do these things and get them right. Right. So he's just confirming all of that. Did you catch anything outside of the Rare comments, Mav? What do you think about him stating that, Everwild isn't going back to the drawing board, that the whole reset thing was kind of taken too far? It's too strong of a word, that the team's just kind of reevaluating and looking at where they want to go in this world and what they want to do with it. What did you think about those comments?
Yeah, I got a lot to say, but first I got to acknowledge two things
Yeah.
here.
Oh.
Crazy Louie, holy cow, man.
Holy cow, Louis.
$100 super chat says, wishing you guys the best. Great show. Really happy you guys got together to do this, which I am as well. Best wishes on this new adventure. You guys rock. You rock, Louis. Always showing the support, dude, and everybody else, even
Amazing, Louis.
without super chats, or just hanging out here, liking, sharing, subscribing to the channel, becoming a channel member, which I saw we just got another one here. Welcome to the Speculators, OCD Gamer as well. Everything matters, even just simple like, guys. So appreciate it. Check us out, all the other shows as well. If you like what you see, give it a sub. But thank you as well just for being here. And Louis, you're awesome, man. So appreciate it so much, dude. Yeah, going into Everwild, right?
Yep.
This is how many times have we seen it?
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3, maybe, I think, at shows.
I think we've seen it 3. I want to say 3.
I think they have something special with the art direction and the world that they are building, right?
Correct.
But
of course, it's rare.
Exactly, right?
Yep.
It takes more than that to have a game that is going to be played for years, right? And I think that's what they're really working on, is just nailing the gameplay loop to make the most enjoyable experience possible. And now they could just say, hey, we've invested all this into it. We got all this. We got to, just come up with something and release it, right? And this goes into the same talk that we had before with Halo Infinite. Okay. They are invested in quality.
Yep.
We've seen even within the last year now, all the releases that they've had within their first party and the studios that they've acquired that already had projects in the works have been reviewed very, very well. You haven't seen a lot of broken things out there or anything like that. They're investing in quality because they have to stand behind quality in order for Game Pass to be successful, right? And they're not in the position that they even need to just release something, right? Because of all of these studios that they're acquiring, all these acquisitions they're making, they could have just pieced together something based on what they built and said, here's that Everwild game, which happens with studios and games all the time when things get to the fact that, hey, the budget's gotten high enough, they've been working on it so long, they just need to get it out, right? There's a lot of examples. You guys know those games that are out there, right? And I think that Everwild, it has something special about it that they were excited to show, right? Early, and to show what Rare's next thing is, right? Because everybody always asks, hey, what's Rare's next thing? What's this studio's next thing? But then when you announce something early and you show something early, you're always going to get these kind of questions later on, right? Now, Everwild, maybe rightfully so to some degree, because we still don't know what it is, right? But we've had those talks about the things happening with the internal studios, with people leaving, changing direction on things. They're just trying to get this thing right at the end of the day, in my opinion. And I think in the long run, we're going to see potentially the best of Rare come through with this title, as long as they do get it right. Because that's the other side of this, is if they don't get it right and they can't figure it out, then hopefully it doesn't become a thing where we never see this game, right? But based on Matt Booty's comments, it seems like they're committed and they're on the right track here. I personally am extremely excited because the last time we saw it, man, that game stood out. It jumped off the screen.
Oh, the animation, the colors, everything was gorgeous. Yeah, it was a rare game through and through, right? What we saw there, that's the main important thing. And I think that's what Booty's talking about. Is that, look, every dev team's going to have its cycle. Every dev team's going to find its path to the game that they're creating. And with Rare, kind of like Double Fine and Tim Schafer and his group over there, again, Rare is special. They have different, they are, again, we talk about how games are always art, right? They are art. But at the end of the day, you have painters who paint differently, right? And with Rare and like Double Fine and those kind of studios, you've got these extremely, extremely creative, out of the box thinking people that come together to try to create, try to put all their ideas into one basket and try to see what's going to work. And I think that sometimes with those types of teams, it's a more windy path than some of the straightforward like Call of Duties, right? We know what we're going to do. This is what we got to do. We got a formula, the Assassin's Creeds of the world. When you get these more artistic, emotional type of games, it takes a lot more to get to that finished product than a lot of other things. Not from a work standpoint, not from an effort standpoint. I'm not talking about that. I'm just trying about finding your way to that finished game just can sometimes take a lot longer than other games, or different paths that takes the team to different spots that you may not be used to seeing a dev team go to. And I think this is one of those spots. They're kind of at like a rest stop, right? They're kind of at a rest stop right now where they're kind of taking a look at the trip, where they came from, where they're going, and they want to make sure that on the map, they've got the right directions and they're trying to get to the right place. And I think that's all they're doing. So they're sitting at the rest stop talking about it and making sure that they're all going the same way, right? And I think that's where they're at with this. Again, I don't think they're hard resetting the game. I think that was blown out of proportion. I think what they've shown us is a special world. It is a rare world through and through. It is something that could touch a lot of people. Now it's just getting the ideas down and making sure that the game mechanics and whatever they're going for is able to shine through. And I think that's where they're at with this right now. So I think we're going to definitely see something special come out of that group. And I think Everwild, when it is ready to be shown again, I think we're going to know. I think we're going to know that this little stop here was just a little stop to kind of take a look at things and make sure that they're clear on where they're going. So I think that's where we're at with the rare stuff. They went on. Again, there was so much here, Mav. Let's talk about this real quick, or not real quick, because we can kind of dive into this. Had some really interesting, they talked about partnerships, right? And with the pandemic and partnering with other studios, right? And what that meant. And they brought up specifically Crystal Dynamics deal, right? And boy, this got, if you listen closely, I've listened to the interview now 3 times. So I've got this down pretty clear. But if you go back and listen to that, he said specifically, first of all, one of his quotes was, "We've got a team that's got experience building the kind of thing that we're building," when talking about Crystal Dynamics, right? That was one of his quotes. He said that it was even in his mind, it was a unusual opportunity to go and partner with Crystal Dynamics. Of course, he talked about the relationships being a big part of that, with Gallagher, Daryl Gallagher being there and knowing the people over there. But the thing that keeps popping in my head when I listen to this interview is he goes, when Crystal Dynamics became available, how many times does a studio like Crystal Dynamics become available? How many times are you going to use that? How many times does a studio that's been around for as long as Crystal Dynamics not have another project already in the works, man? How many times?
Lined up ahead of time.
Lined up years in advance.
Their existing project, right?
Correct.
Now, they may have multiple. I think they have multiple teams.
They do.
Right?
They do.
So
they do.
We don't. I want to know how many of, like, what size team.
I want to know the breakdown too. This sounds like Gallagher's old A team, if you ask me, man. I think this is the Tomb Raider A team, right? I think this is the main core of Crystal Dynamics, and that's why they went, because Perfect Dark is so important to Xbox, right? I don't think they would have settled for a B team. I think they wanted this team specifically because they are the A team. They are the Tomb Raider.
Otherwise, also, what's the point? Well, you could have you could have went to like any independent smaller studio that a lot of these other devs use. They made a point to announce it was Crystal Dynamics working on this with them. You don't do that just for, like, hey, this is the 5 guys from Crystal Dynamics are helping with this project. You know what I mean?
No, and they to even approach again. Gallagher obviously led the way on this, and that's why I think it was planned from the beginning when they started talking about, when they formed the initiative and they started talking about Perfect Dark. I still believe that this was in the plans, but to go to Square Enix and say, "Hey, you got a lot of teams. That little team that does that Tomb Raider game." We borrow them for a little bit on one of our games. Do you want to do a co-development kind of situation with one of your best Western teams? You want to do that? And Square's like, yeah, they got nothing better to do after they get done with Avengers. You guys want them? Go ahead and take them. We'll just swing us some money. I still think this is funny. You could hear the giddiness and you could see it on his face when he was talking about this, that they actually pulled this off. You know, his words were, I'd be remiss not to go make this happen. Right.
Yes.
And I think just the choice of words and how he was speaking, again, this doesn't happen on a regular basis. And it doesn't make sense to me still to this day, even if Square's unhappy with the Avengers, right? Even if it didn't make the money they were making, that there wasn't already another project lined up for this team, that there wasn't already
there's one avenue I would say that there's a reason why.
Right.
And I think that's where you're going with this.
Right.
Right.
The start of something bigger, right? That this could be an acquisition, like that this could have been something they were talking about. Maybe Square is done with the Western, their Western divisions, or maybe just done with Crystal Dynamics. And they kind of got the inside baseball from Gallagher on this. And so the talks started happening. I just found it interesting. We're in Speculation Town. We're on Fun Speculations channel. So of course we're going to head over here. This is what Mav and I love to do. I just thought it was interesting how he chose the words and made crystal clear that this was not your average thing that happens, that this is something special that happened, that a team like this became available. They went available, and that he would be remiss not to make it happen. And they got the contract or whatever done. Right? That Phil and his team went and got the contract or whatever done, is how he put it. To me, that said, okay, this is something a little bit more than just a co-development situation, but I still thought it was cool that he brought this up. Mav, what else did you hear during this part of the conversation? What else did you take from it outside or in agreement with what I just said?
Well, I think you're on the right track here, right? There's a lot. I mean, we can go back to Jeff Grubb's comments a couple weeks back, right? Where he said testing out studios and that kind of stuff potentially. Maybe his opinion was that they were doing that, right? I don't know, man. Like, it just seems like if you start digging and looking into this stuff on the internet, you can find so many rumors that never turn out to anything, right? But there was several about the same thing. And that was Square Enix not being happy with the Western Division and potentially looking to move on. And that was rumors about getting rid of their studios, not even to Microsoft. It was about other publishers, right? So if you, no worries, dude. If you piece everything together, right? And you look at, okay, we got 3 or 4 studios we're interested in. Hey, let's put these guys on this project. They're available, right? Because, hey, for some reason, Square Enix didn't have a project for their #1 Western development team, right? So that leads you to believe, okay, if they don't have that thing in line ready for them to work on, maybe you're ready to move on from them, period, right? They have been happy with the sales of the games. The Avengers supposedly lost a lot of money. They're still working on that, but they're an ace team. And I think coming out and bringing in the Avengers of Square Enix as far as their Western development team of Crystal Dynamics could be a huge boost for Xbox, right? You got Xbox going out and saying, hey, we got money to spend. We got all these places to look at. We got Daryl Gallagher heading up the initiative, which is a newer team that's a smaller team, and we're going to go out there and use his expertise, his relationships, and go and get a relationship with Crystal Dynamics to come and work on a first-party game with the initiative. It just seems too strange. And when Matt Booty even acknowledges the fact that it's strange himself, right? You can say, hey, this is kind of interesting for looking on the outside in, right? That I think something could be going on here. Bernard Miller, thank you for the $2 super chat. It says, great show. Why is a AAA studio available for rent, especially in today's age with the investment in gaming being so high? profits are up, investment in gaming is up, but they don't have a game for their #1 AAA Western dev team after the Avengers. They're going to allow them to go and make a game for another publisher.
Yep.
It doesn't make sense to me that they would just be available like that. And
Right.
unless there's already been that conversation either from Square's side about moving on from that, or from Xbox and Square side about making this a thing, right? Making this happen. And now maybe whatever is happening could be more than just this partnership.
Yeah, especially when Booty was talking about the fact that, again, part of that conversation that they were having, and he brought it up multiple times, was how premium getting talent right now is. How premium, because the industry is exploding, the talent itself, people, getting people into, their devs and their studios is at a premium right now. To be able to just go out, like I said, and I don't think, like I said, like we talked about this before in the past when it first happened, I don't think that, Gallagher called up Phil at 2 a.m. and say, we're not going to be able to finish Perfect Dark. We got to go get a team. Call up Square. I don't think that's what happened, right? I think this was part of the plan, but just the simple fact, take all the speculation away, right? Everybody in this industry, from the smallest to the biggest, has said this is unusual. It's not unusual to pair with teams, but it's unusual to pair with a high caliber AAA team that historically has already proven themselves, right? That's unusual to co-develop outside of your own studios. You co-develop with smaller studios, you co-develop with up-and-coming studios, but to go get an experienced studio that has been in this game, in this industry for as long as Crystal Dynamics has had the recent success, even though Square doesn't count as a success. And yes, Avengers did not live up to the hype. I get that. But prior to that, Tomb Raider did. Square wasn't happy with the sales, but that's a Square issue, okay? Square's got some weird way of analyzing success. Tomb Raiders were fantastic games, sold well, and this team all of a sudden, in the height of the gaming industry, in the golden age of gaming, like we say, Mav, right now, with so much money on the table, so many different projects out there, has nothing else to do. That Square Enix is just like, yeah, sure, go ahead, just flip us some money. Yeah, of course, we're going to make some money off this. Square's always going to make their bag, right? So, but yeah, go ahead, take one of the better teams that we've got and go ahead and co-develop Perfect Dark. That's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine. That's just not going to happen on a regular basis, especially now. Again, if it was some slow period and they didn't have anything going on, Square was in financial trouble and they were, not being able to greenlight projects. We know that's not the case. Square's making hand over fist right now. Final Fantasy 14 is the biggest thing going right now as far as an MMO goes. They are raking in the dough, not to mention all the other quality titles that they've got outside of Avengers, but Avengers has even seen an uptick now that it's in Game Pass. There's no way they let this happen without prior conversations, without something bigger at stake. Again, at the end of the day, do we see an acquisition of Crystal Dynamics? Who knows? Square could have a change of heart, right? Square could say, nah, guess what? We like this team. We're going to keep them on. We got some other stuff we want them to do. That's fine. But at the end of the day, there had to be some kind of conversations to make this happen, and a considerable amount of money. So again, if this is based upon a future acquisition, that could be included in that. But we're going to wait and see. I still think this gives some strong indications, and how Booty was talking about it became available. And I'd be remiss not to get it done. And Phil and his team, did the contract or whatever is how he put it.
Yeah.
Look, that sends up the signals to me, right? So I definitely think there's something more there. But it was cool to hear him talk about it. Again, Booty was just free flowing. I mean, he wasn't trying to be, thinking about what he was saying during this interview. He wasn't trying to be too careful. He was just kind of talking, and he didn't give up anything like drastic, but all these little things here were kind of added up to a great interview that we heard out of him. Another thing is that he's excited about Redfall. Not a whole lot to talk about here, but he did say that he's seen builds of it. that he thinks it looks cool. His exact quote is, I think Redfall is going to be cool because I've seen builds of it and it is pretty cool. So he was using and then he said one of the cool things about the partnership with ZeniMax and Bethesda is to get to spend time with Dishonored, Prey, and Redfall creative director Harvey Smith down there. So again, happy to see Redfall, glad he's seen it. And obviously that was something that he's excited about in the future, because they were kind of talking about. That was another part of the interview that was kind of sweet, is they had earlier asked him what his job was, what his job description was. And he gave a pretty classic answer, but he made it quite clear. Look, he goes, I'm here to make sure, I'm here to take, well, how do you say? I'm here to make sure that nothing stands in the way of them creating the games. I wake up and think to myself, what can I take off of their plate so that they can go make this game better, right? He goes, that's what I'm here to do. I'm not here to go in and tell them what to do. I'm here to make their lives easier. And so that was led into, they asked him later, so, how do you celebrate, he goes, they asked him, do you have a hard time celebrating what's happening right now with the launch of, let's say Forza Horizon 5 and Halo coming up this fall? Do you have time to enjoy it? Or are you always thinking down the line?
He's always thinking down the line.
Always thinking down the line. He said that. Yeah. He goes, I have the heads of the studios telling me, look, you just got to enjoy what's happening right now more. Because he goes, part of my job is thinking down the line. And he specifically goes, well, that's great. We got Forza Horizon 5 coming out. We got Halo launching this holiday. That's fantastic. But what are we doing for E3 next year?
Yes, exactly. I love that though. You have to, right?
Yes.
And when they make these moves, they're thinking 10 years down the line, even, right? Because he's talking about in that interview, like, hey, he was talking about, he remembers when they first brought up the idea of xCloud, right?
Yes.
And Game Pass.
Yep.
And now they're seeing it become such a huge focal point and focus for not only Xbox, but Microsoft, right? To where, like, the whole industry is changing in front of them. And they're making these plans and making these moves. And I think a lot of people get too caught up in the right now and what just happened, right? Because a lot of times when people, especially when they focus on talking about Xbox, they only are thinking of 2013 to 2017, 18 Xbox, right? Not when things really started to change. But if you really look at it, that was only like a 4-year history, right? Where that really fell apart, right? They had their really down time. They got things together under Phil Spencer, and you're seeing everything actually come to fruition, including these things that they laid out in the past. And he's looking ahead. You have to. I love that, because without a plan, without knowing where you're going, then like you can kind of be lost. And I think that's one thing that maybe came from Phil Spencer more, right?
Yeah.
And with the team that he built, about, hey, they focus on the future, the near future, and the present, right? And they're kind of looking at where they're going to be 5 years from now, 3 years from now, and the next year, And they got everything lined up now in a way that I think is going to surprise a lot of people. Not people that have been following this stuff, right? Not people that have been expecting and seeing what they're doing, what their moves are, but people that have been those like, the last game I don't remember. When's the last time Xbox ever released a AAA game? When's the last time this? When's the last time that? Those people are going to be very, very surprised, because those kind of people, you gotta see it to believe it, right?
Correct.
Shout out to Grumble with a $10 super chat. He says, smash a champagne bottle over podcast bow. Congrats on the new show, Mav and Pong. Hey, thank you to you, sir. Thank you
Grumble,
for being here.
Appreciate
on the
you.
new show. 100%. But yeah, also one thing that he had said was that he really freaking, hey, I forgot what I had a thought in my head about Matt, what he was saying on that show. Then I got sidetracked with all this other stuff.
Were you thinking, you weren't thinking about Grounded, were you?
No, man. You alluded to it, and I can't remember what it was. I hate when that happens. Dude,
thinking into the future, thinking to E3, thinking.
No, it was something about something that he was working on or something like that. I can't remember. It was when you were talking about Redfall, because he had talked about something else too. But well, I'll look into it. We'll continue, and if I remember what it is, I'll bring it back up and I'll interrupt you.
Okay, all right, you
Fair
interrupt
enough.
me. That's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, but to that future thought process that he has too. Another thing that he kept bringing up game wise. Blessing asked him specifically. Blessing asked him specifically about Sea of Thieves and the success that Sea of Thieves has had, and he talked about it. He really did a great job of talking about where Sea of Thieves has started and how also part of his job within as head of the studios is to decide whether or not a project continues if it doesn't exactly go the way the team thought it was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was interesting during that part that he, said, look, there's really no analyzing that happens. It's a gut call, right? He says a gut call between us and the executive team and the developers. If they see a way out, then we go ahead and give them the flexibility to do that. And we did that with Sea of Thieves. And now look what we've got. And he said our next, and Blessing had asked him specifically, does the success of Sea of Thieves make you want to go chase that success with other studios? Do you want to make other games in that mold to try to chase that success? And he said flat out, again, no. Again, we don't want to make games that our teams don't want to make. He goes, but I think we've got some other games that have the same potential. And he kept bringing up Grounded. And then on top of what he said that Grounded has got that potential to be that Sea of Thieves game, which started out as a small team, a passion project, as we all know, and has now turned into something bigger. And he said specifically, I can see that game being worked on for the next 5 to 10 years. So you already know the commitments behind it, but all of that just goes back to the fact that they are giving these developers now that are underneath the Xbox umbrella the time and resources necessary to make the dreams a reality, that it's no longer the pressure that's on them to do this kind of, hey, we've got to go chase this, or hey, if the game doesn't work out the gate, we have to just shut it down and move on to something else. They now have the flexibility to say, no, we've got a plan. Let's try to work through this plan and make this happen because we believe in this game. And Xbox, Microsoft is willing to give those guys and gals a chance to do that. And I think that continues to go along with everything we've talked about, Mav, as far as the hands-off approach that now these teams, we've heard Tim Schafer talk about specifically with Psychonauts 2. The game would not have been that game if it was not for Xbox acquiring them. They would not have had the time and resources to do the boss battles in Psychonauts 2. It would not have been the same experience, which is now getting Game of the Year nominations, right? So
yeah,
that's the importance of this, that people sit here again still can control over whether or not it's good for the industry or good for Xbox to go acquire all these studios. Everything we're hearing lines right up with what we've known for a very long time, is that this is a fantastic deal for these studios. These studios are allowed the freedom necessary to move forward with things like a Grounded or like a Sea of Thieves that maybe didn't work out right away, or maybe the potential's there like a Grounded to expand, and they're going to be able to do that. And I think that's huge going forward. Do you remember? Do you remember?
Yes, I remember.
Go, shoot before you forget it. Don't eat an animal cracker.
I wrote it.
Oh,
down
you wrote it
so
down? Oh, you're getting better. Kaitlin, you hear that? He's writing things down now. We're moving forward.
I wrote down like 2 words just to jog my memory, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you're talking about Redfall, right?
Yeah. It's cool.
There's 2 things, right? So
it's cool.
It's cool, right? But that had me thinking, like,
yeah,
man, after all the acquisitions that they made, right? Who would have thought Arcane for 1 year would make such a huge impact, right? With Deathloop and also Redfall coming next year. You're talking about after the Bethesda ZeniMax acquisition, everybody's talking about Starfield, everybody's talking about all these other things and all this other stuff. Arcane, who is a studio that not a lot of people have really talked about after the acquisition was made, is coming out with 2 huge games that are going to be very impactful, I believe, for Xbox within the first year and a half since the acquisition, right? That is a huge deal. Then the other thing was we were talking. I remember we were talking about Crystal Dynamics and stuff. I'm bringing them back up real quick before I forget about it. But even if there's not an acquisition, right? Even if there's not an acquisition, bottom line, this tells you still the investment and quality, right? Because they didn't have to get Crystal Dynamics to do this. They could have gone to any of these independent studios, any of these smaller teams and all these things and said, "Hey, let's you know, have a certain budget and all this stuff and let's just like get this game done," right? But no, they went to that AAA team that was available for some weird reason that we can speculate about. But regardless of anything else, that's just another sign at the huge investment into quality, right? So that was the two things I wanted to make sure before we move on to the next talking point.
Yeah, and before we get to the big one that everybody kind of took out of context, and again, spaces, tweets, articles, took them out of context. We'll get to the big one here. But another thing that was also interesting, again, talking about going and finding acquisition. We were just talking about Crystal Dynamics and the premium that is on talent right now. They talked a lot about, there's a few questions in this interview about the pandemic and how it changed things. And Matt brought up specifically, it's two things. Number one, it's changed how they're approaching technology because they are figuring out new ways. And I think this goes to the cloud because Phil has mentioned it multiple times about how he wants to create cloud gaming, right? Or cloud creation, right? Developing a game in the cloud. He wants to make that accessible to everybody because Matt was talking about how it's changed and they've had to find new ways to get the teams together because there's still, most of the teams are all apart. And he did talk about how the bigger teams are more affected than the smaller teams, but he said specifically they're finding new ways so that, and he brought up the you can't just go to the person. Let's say you're testing a portion of the game and the controls feel a little weird. You can't bring that person over to your desk and say, look, this is what I'm seeing right here. Look, it's not feeling right on the controller. That kind of interaction is gone because they're not together. And they have to find new ways to make that happen so that when they're building these games, that kind of interaction is not interfered with, that they can have that kind of seamless thing, that seamless communication right within. And so he said that now that they've put this technology in place, now that they've had all this time away from each other and they've had to find these new creative ways, they are actually going out and finding new talent in untapped markets and from other locations and from other places because now they're becoming great at working remotely. They are becoming great at having developers all spread out all over the world working on the same game. And they have over this past year and a half, 2 years, have learned how to do that. And they've created new technology. And again, I think the cloud's having a lot to do with this to simulate that experience of being in the same area together so that communication is open and available at all times to work more efficiently on a game, even though you're all separate. So they are now finding talent outside of the normal pools, right? The normal environment, because now you can have somebody thousands of miles away join a team and work on that game, even though they're not in that office space, right? Even though they're not right there. So now that has opened up more opportunities there as well. And again, I think that's so important. Again, looking at the industry as a whole, right now you have to grab as much talent as possible because there is a limited pool. Yes, there are a lot of people entering this industry. Yes, there are a lot of new people creating games, lots from all over, diverse from the world, across the entire world. There are people now making games in their homes, but you have to be able to go find that talent. And now you no longer need them to be close by. So if let's say an Arcane Lyon in France needs to find some talent, they don't have to necessarily look for that local talent or within the European range. They can go across the world and find somebody to help them with a game. And that person may be an absolute dev genius that they never would have had access to previously. Huge step. I think that Xbox is ahead of the curve in this as well when it comes to this because they've had to. They were forced to. Their teams were separated. They had a gigantic team like 343 no longer together in-house because of the pandemic. So they've had to go and think way outside the box. And I think going into the future, when we start thinking about 5-10 years down the road, they are going to be way ahead of the learning curve in a lot of areas because they've developed so much internally to deal with the situation. Huge, 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 huge. I think that's fantastic. Now, let's get to the main point, the biggest one that came out of this. It was asked specifically of Matt Booty. They brought up Sony, and they brought up the Sony games over the past generation. This was Tim Geddes, I believe. Yeah, Tim Geddes is the one who approached this, and Matt was very good with this question. But they asked him specifically about Sony and the success that Sony has found in a specific type of game, right? In a specific type of creation that seems to attract large audiences, right? And they asked him specifically about this. And they asked him, you know, does this make you want to go chase this? Does this make you want to go make your own version of these games? First of all, I'll let you take, but I'll just say that my initial impression was I loved how gracious he was, as is seemingly every Xbox executive. When a competitor is brought up, they are nothing but gracious. And I loved Matt Booty starting out by congratulating Sony on all the success they've had. I'll give the quote, Mav, and then I'll get your thoughts on it, and then I'll end this with my thoughts and kind of go back and forth, and then we'll kind of roll into whatever we want to from there, where we want to go. But I just thought it was fantastic that Booty gave all the credit in the world to Sony and the studios and the entire team over there about what they're doing and how great they are doing. And I thought that was really cool. He some of his quotes out of this were he acknowledged that Xbox had not been out in front when it comes to those big tentpole style games. We haven't really had the sort of one-to-one with Sony on that. What are those games, Uncharted Horizon, that have universal themes, that have big world that people want to get lost in, that have really well realized characters and really high production values? We definitely want those types of games for our fans. It's important to us. End of quote. So again, I'll give what I think out of this. Mav, he went on to kind of explain as well that they are definitely looking at that, and that they need to listen to what their customers are asking for and need to be conscious of that, and that they are looking towards that. And I thought the other interesting point, and then I'll let you take over, is that he said, we are aware, and then he said, Phil has said it, we're not done. Meaning the acquisitions, meaning that they go and find people to make these types of games, right? Not specifically Sony games, but specifically high quality, high production, open world, you know, bigger idea games that seems to capture the imagination of people. So go ahead, Mav. What did you get out of this part of the interview?
So this is the one where everybody took like a sentence out of, and put it out there as a headline, or put it out there as the whole interview was about this, and and they've done this before. I don't remember who, either Phil Spencer or maybe even in the past Matt Booty or somebody's quotes about this same thing and twisted the words. And they, a lot of times this is used as an argument topic when people say that Xbox doesn't want to make AAA games, right? And they somehow twist these comments that you read the actual statement, and they kind of twist those things into that somehow, and they put that out there as a fact, when in fact it is absolutely nothing in the realm of truth to that whatsoever. And in fact, what he's saying is they want to make big universal worlds, but they goes on to say they don't want to copy exactly what Sony is doing with their games, because they don't need to do their God of War. They need to make their own game that people see as good as God of War.
And he said that, man, not to interrupt, but he did say that. He said, I'm not looking at asking the question, what is our Uncharted? What is our God of War? He goes, that's not the question I'm asking here. So,
right. Yes. And that's because that's the quote that was twisted in the past, right? Where he says that when the people take for him saying, no, we don't want to make and a copy of that game or whatever. We don't want to make our version of this, our version
Correct.
of that, as they don't want to make AAA games for some reason. When that's absolutely not. Every studio, every platform has their own identity, right? With something, you can say that Xbox has been largely multiplayer focused games in the past, right? You can say PlayStation has these very story driven third person games, right? And you can say that Nintendo has platformers and stuff like that, right? But when you look at it with all the investment that they have, with the investment into quality, like we've been talking about, his statement kind of coincides with that, right? That they want to make big worlds with universal themes, and they want those types of games, and they are committed to delivering those, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be something that looks like God of War or looks like Uncharted or looks like The Last of Us to be that game that has that impact, because that those games already exist. If they make clones of games, you're gonna always come across as like the copycat of another franchise or copycat of another thing. Like this happened in movies for years. It's happened with a lot of things. But if you create Halo or you create, Fable, right? Or you create Avowed, or you create your own big world, universal theme world that people can get lost in, and it's your own creation, then it's going to stand behind your brand and not come across as a copy of another game. Now, we look at what Xbox has in development? Do they have third person action games in development? Yeah, they do have Hellblade 2 in development, that which we know is going to be bigger than the previous game. Also, a game that was, if I remember right, was in the contenders for Game of the Year and stuff the year that the original was released, right? So there's a lot to look forward to with this, and also with everything that they're doing. It just doesn't necessarily have to be a copycat, and that's all that he's said in the past and saying here. But the investment is strong, and they want to deliver on those types of experiences. And I respect the fact that he says, "Hey, yeah, they haven't delivered on that," and we all know that they haven't delivered on AAA games the last few years as from the first party, and that we all know the reasons why, right? Now they're in a different position, and they're moving forward, looking ahead with a different commitment, different backing by Microsoft, right? Different platform with Game Pass, new studios, lots of talent, and they're going to make these AAA games that, guess what, guys? Within the next few months, we're going to get a few of them, right? And then we're going to keep seeing them come out and come out and come out and come out at a pace that has never been seen before from any first party studio. So I think, a lot of people take specific comments, quotes, and try and use them, much like they did with the percentage, right, of Game Pass subscribers and all these kind of things. But if you go and actually take everything and listen for yourself, then you can actually see what they're doing. And I'm excited about the investment of quality that they have with their studios and their franchises, and the creative direction that they're letting their developers have as well, which is another key thing. They don't want to go and take Rare and say, "Hey guys, I need a God of War game."
Right.
They don't want to go take the Coalition and say, "Hey guys, what you're doing is great, but can you make The Last of Us, but like just different?"
Right.
Like
Right.
that's not the way to do things. The creative led studios usually means the idea kind of comes from the start of from the creators themselves, who are actually in charge of the studios, right? And that's a key factor as well with what they're doing, because the other way, it hasn't worked well in the past, and it doesn't work well for some other publishers that are going through some of that as well right now. And I think it just makes sense. Sony, that's what they do to an extent. They do have a kind of formula, right, with some their games that kind of like follow like a specific design formula that works, but a lot of these people that are working at these studios are like really great writers and have great vision for these specific types of games.
Yeah.
That's when they made these deals and partnerships with these different devs like Insomniac and these other things, and they're creating their own creations now, right? Within Sony, but they do fit a specific kind of model as well, right? So I think all of the platform holders specifically could reach out and do more with different types of things. And I think specifically that he's kind of mentioning that yes, they can do more with that specific kind of game. They're just not going to go and copycat.
Correct. And I think that, again, listen to the quote. What are those games that have universal themes, that have a big world that people want to get lost in, that have really well realized characters and have really high production values? We definitely want those types of games for our fans. It's important to us. He's getting to the core values of how the shift has happened within Xbox. Gone are the days of pushing out a recore just to get a game out the door, right? Gone are those days of chasing after the latest and greatest thing. And he had mentioned that earlier too, as well, that, that a lot of times devs now, if they're not underneath a big umbrella like Xbox, will be kind of pressured because they need a successful game to continue making games because they don't have the backing of an Xbox, that they're pressured now to go after, the buzzword type games, the battle royales, those kind of games. Whereas the devs that are underneath the Xbox umbrella are now able to sit back, make the games that they want. But he is alluding to the fact that they have now had this mind shift, that they are no longer in the position to have to get a game that may not be up to par out. We know for a fact, it's been talked about internally. They reviewed Last of Us 2, right? They internally reviewed that to find out what makes those types of games tick when it comes to, Sony and getting those. Again, we talk about Metacritic, the game of the year stuff. Look, to some of us, it doesn't matter. We're going to go play games that interest us no matter what at the end of the day. And I think most people should do that. But to the masses, it does matter. Those big words, game of the year, 90 Metacritic, whatever the case, they do make an impact when people are thinking about the next game they're going to play or purchase. And I think that they understand that quality control has not been up to par. And I think Phil has been upfront about that. I think Matt Booty is being upfront about that and say, hey, we understand when we create a world and we want to create these worlds, we're going to have a diverse lineup, right? They're going to have games that cover all genres, but we do understand there are those big production value type games that are universally loved when they come out. And there's no doubt about that. If you're not an Xbox fanatic who only plays on Xbox, if you're a gamer like Mav and I, we can look over to Sony side and absolutely say, damn, those are some high quality games over there, right? Those are, whether you like them or not, and you don't even have to like them. Like, I'm not the biggest Spider-Man guy, and Spider-Man 2018 didn't do it for me, right? It's not that big a deal. But at the end of the day, I can still look at that game and say, that's a quality game, right? That's got some great value to it. I can look at a Horizon Zero Dawn, which I absolutely loved and I thought was a great start to a new franchise. I can look at that game and go, God, man, they put a lot of polishing into this game. This game looks beautiful. I can look at The Last of Us 2, even though it's not my title game. I'll never play it. There's only one Last of Us. I can look at the game though, and I can watch people play it and go, yeah, man, that's like movie quality right there stuff, right? So that part of it has been missing in a lot of ways from Xbox. And it's been because of the situations of the past that they were in financially, in the positions that the Xbox itself found itself within Microsoft as not being a pillar of what Microsoft was doing at that time from a corporation standpoint. That has all now changed. So now that's all changed. Now that the coffers are open, you got the backing of Satya, Phil is at the big boys table, right? Now that all of that has happened, now they can go, yeah, this is the stuff that we do need to focus on. We know that our customers are asking for this stuff. We know that we have to do a better job here. And then for him to go on to talk about those types of games and say Phil has come out and said, we're not done yet. Look, that's another signal on top of Phil's definitely word usage in his acquisition speech. That's telling you that Matt Booty as well knows that they're going to go out and find teams that can put together these types of games, not a copycat, not just, hey, we need our God of War. Go find another guy in mythology and drop him in somewhere and make it third person and give him a little kid to follow him around. No, not doing that, but a team that wants to design a game that fits those kind of qualities. Big world, well-realized characters, right? High production values, right? The overarching kind of universal themes within the game, more emotional games, more like a movie, more like a book, right? Something that can draw people in. They're going to go find those teams that want to do those games as well, right? And again, they're not going to force it down anybody's throat. You know, they're not going to go tell Tim Schafer all of a sudden he has to do an Uncharted. They're not going to do any of that crazy stuff, right? They're not going to push. They're not going to try to pound the square peg in the round hole, right? They're just not going to do that. But they are aware that a lot of people are drawn to these types of games. And if they've got the chance to go find a team that wants to do one of those games because they come to, Xbox with an idea, they're going to grab it and they're going to take it and run with it. And on top of that, they're going to look at their whole entire lineup and say, hey, you guys need more time. We're all about quality control. We want these games coming out polished. We want to make sure they're finished right. We want to make sure that when it comes out, people go, wow, this is really good. This is not an unfinished game like the old days we saw. This is really, really polished. This is something special. They took a lot of time and effort. You know what? We might have had to wait some extra time like Halo. We had to wait an extra year, over a year. But guess what? When it comes out, from what we've seen from the flighting, that's what they've been doing, is polishing the hell out of that thing. And it's shining, baby. It's shining and it's coming through. That's what they expect now from their games going forward. And that expectation means that they're going to let the devs do what they do best, create the game, sit back. They need more time, more resources. So be it. We're going to give them to you. And oh, by the way, we're going to go find other teams that also want to do this as well and are going to work within our system. That's all what this is all about going into the future. Again, great interview, big interview with Matt Booty.
And Pong.
I
forget, just thinking about this, I mean, they probably already have some of these type of games in the works, because Compulsion, we don't really know what that is, right? But we know that there's a lot of people really excited about it. And then there was another studio, and maybe it was that was supposed to be working on like a dark fantasy third person action game. I forget the project name of that as well. But that was another one that was rumored from one of the other studios that they're working with. So this seems like they already have some different things. And the key thing is variety as well. It's not that's not the only hole they have in games, right? And they've been making acquisitions that fill the needs of variety within Game Pass. Like Double Fine fits great, right, with what they want to do, because it adds more of those E for everyone type games as well, right?
Yeah, and he said I know Tim Schafer has thousands of games in his head that have yet to be made.
Oh yeah. And that was one of the most underrated acquisitions. When I heard somebody like, why did you go buy Double Fine? What does that do for culture? I'm like, what? Like Double Fine is like just one of the most creative studios that pumps out games that are all extremely original, and it fits a huge need in the platform. So it makes sense. Plain and simple. What else we got, Pong?
Look, man, I think that wraps up the Booty, unless you got any final thoughts on Booty. I just thought it was
Booty.
I know, right? Pause. You can't help it with his name. Like anything you say with Booty's name is gonna sound like questionable. So no, I just think overall, I think he gave a great view of the mindset currently at Xbox, and I think it is something that's why they're coming from a position of strength right now, is because of the team that Phil has put around himself. And I know that you're never going to make everybody happy. And some people have questioned whether or not Booty's the right man for that position. Whether or not he's leading these teams in a right way. But from everything he said in this interview, and from what I got out of this interview, I think he is, and I think they do share a vision, a collective vision, and there's nobody that's kind of breaking away from that. I think the collective vision, they are now all on the same page from the top down to the bottom, and I think that we are going to see that difference in the games coming out and what they do in the future with their services like Game Pass, xCloud, etc. I think all of that is now working cohesively, hand in hand, and I don't think we have the same kind of issues ever again that we saw in the past. Yes, are there still going to be moments where they trip up? Of course there is. It happens to the best of them. But at the end of the day, I think now we have one team, one vision, ready and planned for the future. And now it's just getting the games out, right? Now it's just showing at the end of the day everything that they're talking about. And when those Metacritics start hitting, when those Game of the Year nominations start coming down, like we've already seen with Psychonauts 2, maybe we get that with Forza Horizon finally breaking through the racing barrier. That's one of my personal things. With Halo Cup dropping, maybe the Halo becomes the biggest thing ever again, which I believe it has a chance to. Look, that's when everybody's going to be able to sit back and go, see, this is what we were talking about. And then it's just going to be a matter of doing it on a consistent basis with the rest of the studios. And that starts next year with the Arcanes, with Redfall and that kind of stuff dropping. Starfield coming next year. If Starfield comes out, one of the most polished Bethesda games of all time, you're going to be able to say it's because they allowed them to sit back, take the extra year. They full-time development between PC and Xbox, and they were able to get the game to where it is. Maybe we won't have the bug Bethesda anymore. I'm sure there'll still be bugs because it's a big, gigantic open universe now. But at the end of the day, I think that polish could shine through. And I think that's where this goes from here. So just a great overall interview. A lot to take away from Booty's interview. I loved it. And so, hey, look, almost at the 2-hour mark, Mav. Do you want to get into God of War? I can. If you don't, we don't have to.
I'm down.
You down?
Hey,
you're down?
Get,
okay.
To this $20 super chat from Crazy Louie Gaming real quick. Again, he had us with a $100 super chat earlier. Now another $20 super chat. It's absolutely insane, but appreciate it more than you know. He says, again, guys, great show. Matias Culuto in Spanish. Culito.
You just said something horrible in Spanish.
I did. That's Matt. That's Matt Booty, I think, is what he said. Matias Culito. Hey, love it.
Yeah, love it. Yep. So
God of War, man.
God of War.
Real quick.
God of War. Let's dive in this real quick. So the other big news of the week was that God of War was announced officially coming to PC January 14th, 2022. Something that most of us that are here talking about this stuff on a daily, weekly basis, reading about it, understood was going to happen. Unfortunately, of course, there's people out there who don't want to see the future of gaming and denied that this would ever happen. But now here we are. So Sony finally announced it officially, January 14th. God of War, all the upgrades you'd come to expect on a PC. This isn't a simple port, Mav. I don't know if you looked at some of the screenshots, but dang, they're doing some work on this. It'll be curious to see if Nixxes had a hand in this. Nixxes, the one of the companies that they just bought, which is specializes in porting games. It'll be interesting to see if they had their hand in this, because they are bringing the absolute best version to PC. We'll have to wait and see if they do a director's cut for PS5, but it's coming to Steam and I believe Epic. It's coming everywhere for $50. So great day for gamers overall. Mav and I, of course, are not on the hate train about PC. Look, the more people that get to play games, the more people that buy into games, the more money there is to spend on more games to make more games, right? So that's how this all works. This is a big old ecosystem. We're all part of it. And I don't care where it goes. I don't care if they try to find a way to put it on Switch. Doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I don't care that Xbox games go everywhere. Does not matter to me, right? So at the end of the day, great decision from Sony. This is where the industry is trending. This is the future. They're not going to leave money on the table when it's sitting there right for them. A lot of people are saying, well, now they're moving the goalposts. Yeah, but it's a 3-4-year-old game, so it really doesn't matter. I don't care. I don't care.
Right.
Everybody on PlayStation's already bought it, right? This is how they're moving the goalposts now, and I'm talking about the fanatics on that side that like to do this stuff. So even if they were in the camp of, oh, this is never going to happen, now it's just an old game. Look, this is Sony starting out slow. This is the future. They're going to eventually get close. I don't know if they'll ever do day and date with all of their games. I think that some games eventually will be day and date, but I think the time frame is going to keep getting closer and shrinking down, where we see newer titles go into PC, especially Mav, because of the success that they are going to see there. God of War was announced, and the pre-order shot to #1 on Steam within hours. It was number one over everything. They're going to sell a bajillion over on PC. And you know who that's going to make happy? Jim Ryan. Jim Ryan's going to be grinning from ear to ear when he sees that bottom line. Because even though they're upgrading it a lot, it doesn't cost a lot anymore to transfer those games over like it did back in the old days. So this is a big deal. Mav, when they first announced this, were you crying? Did you break down? Did you throw your PS5? Did you sell it? Did you put it up for auction? What did you do? Because you got a PC. You got a PC that could run this thing for sure.
Yeah.
So what was your initial reaction, man?
I went and sat down and I had a talk with myself about my feelings and things that people think about it. Dude, I'm like, hey, cool. That's honestly like that's the only thought that pops in my head when I first see this. I'm like, well, it makes sense. Cool,
right.
Finally. Right?
Yep.
But there's some people, for some reason, this is like such a huge thing for them that they need to feel special about their decision to buy a specific box because other people can't play those games. I have never understood that aspect of it, right? Now, I understand like having pride for a platform that has good games on it, right? But if those good games go to other people that have other platforms as well, then that just means other people get to play those good games. And it absolutely does not detract away from your experience whatsoever. So, do I feel less special that they are deciding to put games on another platform? Absolutely not. In fact, I'm just happy that more people get to play a great game. I'm also happy that we get to see improvements in a great game and get to see a game probably reach fidelity and stuff that we never would have seen otherwise. Right? So if you really want that crazy experience, you can go play it at 1,000 frames per second. Or I mean, that's not realistic, but you know what I mean. Go play it at whatever, however you want to play the game and with the experience of the PC experience, right? Which we're going to talk about with Halo Infinite tomorrow on Xbox Ultimate and how they talked about a lot of the PC stuff today, right? The difference is right now is PlayStation's getting their feet wet into this. This is not the first game they've done it with. They had some released last year. Was Death Stranding released on PC, or I forget what was the other game that came out last year to PC?
Horizon Zero Dawn.
Horizon. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah. So Horizon came out on PC, and people were saying, "Oh God, Horizon, okay." And that God of War will never come out to PC.
Then Days Gone. Days Gone also came.
Days Gone. Yeah. This is going to be a thing, right? And it's going to be a thing where it's not going to take as long in the future. Right. I think that these games are, I don't know if they're going to ever do day and date. Oh, when I say ever, that's okay. I take that back. Okay. I don't know how long it will take them to get to day and date.
Only cis deal in absolutes, Mav.
Right.
You know.
I don't know how long it will take them to get to day and date.
Right.
But I think that the timeline between PlayStation and PC release is not going to be that dramatic, right? We're gonna see the window maybe 6 months to a year right? Potentially. And who knows how well it works? You may see that shrink, right? And it's interesting to see the conversation kind of shift. Like you said, the goalpost being moved about people saying that they doesn't matter to them because they're still going to buy the games on PS5 because they enjoy the console experience. They enjoy the console experience. They enjoy playing on a console. That's their preferred method of playing a game. That's 100% what people on Xbox that have understood this decision making have been saying all along. Not everybody wants to play on PC, right? Even though you can't get 180 frames per second, and you can't play it 20,000p or again, this is all bullshit stuff. But you know what I mean, though, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't. Not every gamer is going to invest $3,000 into the ultimate gaming rig and want to sit at their desk. A lot of people play on their couch, right?
Right.
I play on console at my desk, and I have my Xbox Series X right here.
Yep.
I have my PS5 right here, and I have a Switch right here.
Yep.
Guess what? I have a PC here as well. I don't play very many games on that thing, right?
Correct.
I choose to play the games on console because just for me, it is an experience that I enjoy personally. To people that really like love the PC and dig into all that stuff. I understand why, right? I understand why because I can see the quality you're getting there with all those frames and all the graphical options and all that stuff. But for me, I also always have more problems, right? So I just like the console experience. It keeps it nice and simple. I know what to expect. I know I'm getting the best version. I'm playing at the most optimized version for what I'm playing on. I turn it on, go to the game, play it. It's a great experience.
Yep.
Now, do I want those guys that want to be able to play at like 200 frames per second to be able to enjoy the same games that I do? Yes, absolutely. Why not? Why would I feel like they aren't allowed to because I'm the one that bought the Xbox, right? I'm the one that bought the PlayStation. They didn't buy the PlayStation. They shouldn't get to play a PlayStation game.
Because, Mav, you got to protect the console, man. You got to protect the corporation. Got to protect them.
For me,
they don't know what they're doing.
A console is a device in which you access and play a game on.
Correct.
Right? And there's also a PC. There's also a mobile phone. There's also streaming sticks are going to be coming out. You guys don't even understand. We're talking about this right now.
Yeah.
In 10 years, this conversation is going to be pointless.
Mm-hmm.
Because you look at where cloud gaming has come in the last 5 years, right? I was playing on my phone last night in bed, just hanging out, and I was kind of messing around, flipping between different games on xCloud. And if you look at where that technology is going, in fact, we got new news today about NVIDIA making leaps with their streaming technology. Yep. 5 years from now, with improvements with internet, connectivity, networks, back-end stuff on servers and technologies they're implementing and all this stuff, cloud gaming is going to become more and more relevant, which is, if you want to really deep go into that, that's the whole reason behind this whole Game Pass and all that stuff. Because guess what? The number one gatekeep thing for gaming and numbers is the hardware purchase. Right? You're not going to get 500 million people to go out and buy a $500 box.
Accessibility. So it's always about.
Mobile gaming. Apple is the leader in revenue, I think, for gaming. Apple does not have a gaming device, right? What do you think? Like Microsoft and Sony and all these companies are like, see like Apple leading the way with like gaming revenue, and like they're putting their heart and soul into all this tech and all these things, and like Apple's just has mobile games in their storefront. You know what I mean? Like the future of gaming is accessibility on multiple platforms and multiple devices, and Xbox has gotten it earlier than Sony has, as far as the Xbox is a place where you access the ecosystem for the people that prefer to play in that on that specific type of device, right? For me, Xbox is the way I prefer to play the games, right? Because I prefer the method of accessing console, booting it up, downloading your games locally, and playing the best version of it that I know I can play on that hardware. And for me, that works, right? But realistically, like if Sony isn't thinking in the same ballpark, like 5-10 years from now, it's gonna be a different world. And you talk about Matt Booty and Phil Spencer sitting there and having those meetings about the future when they originally even talked about the possibility of xCloud, and now it's here. These things are going on to where you have to look ahead, and that's why Pong is always saying the golden age, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why the investment is so huge into gaming. People see it. These investors, these gaming companies, these devs, they see this future of accessibility with gaming is increasing at a record pace, right? And it's not going to stop. So to say you only have to focus on the console is just such a dated idea. And PlayStation's not the only one guilty of it, right? In the past, but it's great that PlayStation is moving on past that now, and we're seeing them dip into other platforms, and we're going to see where that goes in the future. But I think it's a great move, and I'm excited for all of the gamers out there that are going to get to play this game for the first time.
Right. Exactly. And shout out to Noof. Hey, look, Noof. I get it, man. I totally do. Right. He says, sorry to be a skeptic, but my problem with publishers is the invention of ways to get gamers to play, but less ownership or choice over licenses. You are correct. But again, nobody thought. All you have to do is look at the music industry. All you have to do is look at the movie industry, right? How many people buy physical anymore out of either one of those, right? It's not necessary anymore to buy physical. Why? Because you can stream everything at the same quality. Now, we can have arguments over whether or not it's the same quality, right? We can have all those arguments at the end of the day. If you're an audiophile, I can hear you when you say it's not the same. But for the average consumer, it's good enough. And for the average consumer, they don't care about not owning that anymore. Or they will go out and buy special things that they do want to own only. Gaming is headed the same way. Of course, Noof, you are absolutely 100% correct. This is a money business. They are going to find the cheapest way to do this and make the most profits out of it. And if that means at the end of the day, people don't own their physical copies anymore, they don't own the content anymore, even though they purchase it, they're just purchasing a license. You are absolutely correct. That is where the world is moving. And I agree with you 100%. Right? But unfortunately, that is the future. It's not going to change. And these companies are looking down the road. Why do you think Google came out with Stadia? Why do you think Amazon came out with Luna? Now, we saw Stadia fail, right? We saw Stadia go down the tubes, but that was more because Google didn't have their heart in it. Google did not have the guts to stick it out. Google dipped their toes in and said, ooh, I don't like that too much. I'm out, right? Amazon's a different beast. Now we've seen them have some success with New World. And again, I know it's not the greatest thing going. I've heard all the problems with it. I don't play on PC, but I've heard enough people have looked into it enough. There are a lot of problems with it. But guess what? They've had success with it. Amazon's going to stick this thing out, I think. And why do they have the Luna, which is going to be a streaming device? They're not going to sell you Amazon's never going to produce a console. Okay? They're never going to. They don't need to. They are going to fight through this initial kind of fighting, the beginnings, the birth of this era. They're going to fight through that because they've seen Netflix fight through it. Netflix was willing to sell to Blockbuster at one point for what was it, $1 million or $100 million, whatever it was.
Something like that. Yeah.
They were willing to sell to Blockbuster. Guess what? Blockbuster didn't see the future either. Blockbuster said, the streaming stuff, are you kidding me? Nobody's ever going to stop coming to our stores. Nobody's ever going to stop getting physical. Nah, go take your streaming service somewhere else, people. Now look at them. Is anybody around at Blockbuster to answer that question anymore, to answer why they did that? Nope. Why? Because they didn't see the future. The future is what it is. All right. They're going to do this, whether we like it or not. If it becomes to a point where it's no longer fun for you because it's just not what you expected or wanted out of gaming, you know what? Then maybe it's just time to move on, right? That's sometimes how it is. But the future is coming no matter whether we like it or not. Xbox has seen the future. Amazon has seen the future. Google did see the future. They just didn't have their heart in it. Sony for sure is looking at it. Now, the only one is Nintendo, right? Can Nintendo survive it? Because we don't know if Nintendo will ever get to that point, right? But look, they're more of a toy manufacturer, as King David likes to say. Shout out to Iron Lords. They're more of a toy company than anything else. But at the end of the day, most of the companies are going to move this way because it is cheaper. It's got a higher profit margin. Okay. And that's what this business is all about. Right. So if they ever stop making games, if it ever becomes a mobile market, like a lot of people like to concern troll, that, oh my God, this is all bad. It's all the games are going to be turned into mobile games. All the games are going to turn into the, turn into just, these shadow or shells of their former selves. We're never going to get the real AAA games anymore. Look, if that ever happens, I'm out. That's fine. It's not for me then anymore. But guess what? I'm not going to stop enjoying it right now for what it is. And right now is the golden age. Right now, there's more money, more people, more everything involved in this industry than ever before. We are going to get some of the greatest. We already are, but just wait 3, 4, 5 years down the road. This full-time streaming thing isn't going to happen for maybe 10 years, right? Quantum computing could change that if they ever get that to a point where it's commercially viable, but that's a little ways down the road too. There's a whole lot of stuff coming down, but then we might get we might get holodecks at that point. So that'd be cool with me too if I can go into a virtual world that way. But anyways, I'm going to enjoy it while it's here. While it's still for me, it's still for me, and I'm going to enjoy this because this ride is going to be crazy. The things that we are going to get out of this generation alone 5 years from now, because this will be the longest generation, I think. I think we're looking at a 5 to 8, or we're looking at an 8 to 10 year generation. I think we're going to see some incredible stuff come out. We're only seeing the tips of the iceberg right now. And I think that we're just going to kick back, enjoy the ride, see where it goes. Again, the industry will always adjust. If Game Pass is a terrible idea, like a lot of people like to say, if Game Pass isn't viable, if Game Pass can't survive, guess what? It won't survive. The industry will move on. It's not going to crash. The industry is too big right now. It's not going anywhere. There's more people getting into gaming every single day. And the options, the accessibility is only going to open up to more people. Will we get more games that may be mobile-like? Sure we will. They're money makers. What are you going to do? But the companies also understand that there's a core base of gamers that is quite big. Console-wise, it's almost 200 million strong if you look at the console sales. That aren't all going to be there unless they keep making the games that we love. They're going to continue to make the games that we love as well. So I just think there's more opportunity. This is a great start for Sony to bring it back to God of War. I think that they understand. Jim Ryan, from his latest comments and his interviews, understands where this industry is headed. He understands that Sony needs to catch up. Not that they have to do a 1-for-1, not that they have to copy Microsoft and Xbox and what they're doing per se, but they do have to catch up. And they do have to start finding new people to enjoy their games because they're capped. And you can't stay capped forever. You have to expand your market. And he understands his games are extremely popular. And that's why you see it shooting to #1 within hours, because they are extremely popular. And he wants to capitalize on that popularity and make sure that as many people as possible can experience them. And that's what he's going to do for Sony. So again, great job, Sony. Glad you finally did it. We'll wait and see. Like Mav said, we'll see how close it gets, if they ever get to the day and date point, or if they just slowly work it down. Maybe it's within the first 6 months. If it's within the first 6 months, I still think that's a great thing. But I do think that time frame will get shorter, and we'll just see how short it gets before they put those games out. But yeah, those are my final thoughts. Buckle up, people. If you don't believe in the future, if you can't see the where the industry's going, buckle up. It's going to be one heck of a ride for you. So that's all I got to say, because we are moving fast. And this pandemic has just sped it up. But be that as may, Mav, 2 hours, 20 minutes, our first show, 2 topics. Knocked it out of the park, brother. Crazy. 2 topics, brother. We knocked it out of the park. This is the best part about a 2-man team. I love this aspect of it. both you and I had a good chance to deep dive all of this stuff. Chat seemed to be enjoying it. Chat, you guys are absolutely phenomenal again each and every week. But this is the first episode of PM in the PM. Pong and Mav in the PM. Mav gave me the captain's chair.
Got the seat, bud.
I got the seat. But he was right there. In case anything happened, anything went wrong, he was ready to start pushing buttons and take control, right?
Absolutely.
No, man, he's running behind the scenes. He is still running everything. He just so happened to let me lead the talking. Look, man, what a great episode. PM in the PM. We are here to stay. First episode of hopefully 1,000, maybe 10,000 episodes. Who knows? Mav and I will be old and decrepit still sitting here talking about the golden age of gaming.
Will be very different by the time we're done with this.
Yes. You might all be watching us, watching him and I be decrepit in virtual reality. So you can actually see us up close and personal. But anyways, thank you all for coming out. This was a great first episode. Mav, everything we thought about, brother, everything that we did, everything that we kind of talked about behind the scenes worked out perfectly. So again, much love to you, brother. Why don't you tell everybody all the stuff you got going on? Because again, you're building this empire. You were like the godfather. You're like the godfather right now. You are expanding out your influence into the YouTube podcasting world. So tell everybody where they can find you, Mav, what you got going on, and all that good stuff, man.
Well, first I had to make you an offer you couldn't refuse.
Dude, just no horses' heads, please. Just no horses' heads.
Hey, this was awesome, dude. Thank you again for agreeing to do this with me. It's just absolutely. I had a feeling that it was going to go great, and I think it did. Just like the other show. So I can't wait for next week to do this again and see what our topic's gonna be. There's a lot we could have. We were talking in DMs. So there was 20 different things we could have deep dove on, right? And man, we didn't get to. We wanted to focus this on like one or two things, right? And I think it allows for more attention to those specific topics, and I freaking love that we're doing it this way, man. So chat was awesome and absolutely incredible today as well. So everybody in the chat showing up for this first show, you continue to astound me, continue to surprise me here with Fun Speculation on YouTube. I appreciate each and every one of you guys so much, for the super chats as well, the channel members, everybody here, whether you're watching it live or after the fact, liking, sharing, subscribing, or just participating in the chat. You guys are amazing so much. And if you want to check out the other content that we have going on Fun Speculation, like Pong said, we got multiple things in the works. Of course, if you've been following this channel for a long time, you know about Xbox Ultimate Podcast, which is our Xbox show, which is Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, which features the Magnificent Seven. We've had a couple people away for a few weeks. I have a feeling within the next couple weeks, you're going to see some returns as well. So looking forward to that. We're going to talk Halo tomorrow. We'll talk a bunch of other awesome stuff tomorrow. So tune in tomorrow night, Xbox Ultimate Podcast, 9 p.m. Eastern. Then we also have Saturday. We have FSP, Fun Speculation Podcast, the namesake of the podcast. This is a non-console specific podcast as well, with some awesome people. We got Key, Phasma, and Fuzzy. We have just a range of topics that we're going to go over with, and absolutely love how that show has started as well. Wednesdays is Fun Pop, where we do movies and TV shows. That one is at 7 p.m. Eastern, featuring Psychonauts and Jasper. Love what we're doing there as well. And then on Mondays, we kind of do a deep dive of like what the games are coming for the week ahead on Tidbits. So that's the slate, guys. Plus, you'll see me streaming, hanging out. Stop by all the time in the chat, say hello. That's why I love to stream, is to interact with you guys. So Pong, I broke down the slate here for Fun Speculation, but you and Steel also have an amazing thing going on Saturday, and you're also on another podcast Saturday as well, Shop, which I will be making an appearance this week.
Absolutely, which is awesome. I'm going to see you 3 days in a row, brother.
That's scary.
That is kind
Oh.
of scary. That is kind of scary. Anyway,
I'm sick of your face.
Might get to that point. Although shop, we don't do faces. So guess what? You don't have to stare at my face. So, hey, look, everybody, again, phenomenal. Thank you all for showing up. We had so many people from the community out here tonight. Can't do this without you. Each and every show that we do, this is amazing. I still can't believe this many people want to come listen to us talk, but I appreciate every single one of you gamers. You guys are incredible. What just happened said this sounds like an Xbox show. Hey, if you missed the beginning of the show, we kind of explained it. This is going to be non-console eccentric too, but we are going to focus on 1, 2, maybe 3 topics on slow weeks where there's smaller topics, but we're just going to deep dive them. If it's Xbox, it's Xbox. If it's PlayStation, it's PlayStation. If it's Nintendo, it's Nintendo. It doesn't matter. It might be mobile one week. Who the hell knows, right? So look, you just never know what you're going to get from us. Obviously, we do have our preferred platforms as Xbox right now, but that doesn't mean anything. We're all gamers. So, just keep checking us out. You never know what topics we're going to come up with. We'll try to let you know ahead of time. But again, this is kind of where we're going with this show. So as Mav said, find me Pong Soul everywhere. You guys know the drill there. Xbox Ultimate tomorrow night. Can't wait to see you there. Great show. Each and every week. Look forward to it. Like Mav said, Saturday mornings. Look, you like this format, this 2-man format, come check Steel and I out. My brother from another, Steel Rain, and I, man, we do living split screen Saturday mornings. Our shows run generally at this point. We're done with even trying to say 2 hours. We'll just say 3 to 4 hours. Okay. Steel and I just don't stop talking, and we cover a lot of topics. Some weeks it's more than others, but look, Steel and I like to talk like Mav and I like to talk. So if you love this format, come check us out. Living split screen. You're going to hear high energy. You're going to get you up in the morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock Central Time, 3 p.m. UK time. Split screen is all one word. Living split screen. We got a deal going on right now. Shout out to Midweek Mix-Up Collective, Wandering Dutch, and the whole crew over there. Look, Dutch, when we get to 400 subs, we're at like 340, I want to say right now. When we get to 400, Dutch is going to give away a custom series or a custom PlayStation 5 controller. Go check out Dutch's Twitter if you want to. It's Wandering Dutch. You will see the artwork that he does. He does it all by hand. He does consoles. He does controllers. It's beautiful. He's going to give one of those away as soon as Steel and I hit 400 subs. So come check us out Saturday morning. Otherwise, Saturday night, like Mav said, the Shop Podcast, PTK Blam's channel. He was in the chat tonight. Shout out to you, brother. Look, PTK deserves a lot bigger audience than he has. He's been doing it for over 5 years, runs a fantastic show. Fuzzy Belvedere, Centurion, myself, PTK, and of course this week we do have Mav on as a guest. It's going to be an awesome way to end your Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 o'clock Central Time. Tuesdays, Xbox Factor Podcast, Mr. Boomstick, Zemi Games. 3-Bit is back. Mav is now a part of the show, and Archimedes, along with myself, Hall of Fame panel. It's amazing. Xbox Factor Podcast, Tuesdays, 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 o'clock Central. Look, I say this at the end of all my stuff now. This is my tagline, but I mean it. I didn't come up with this out of the whim. Me and Mav talked about it behind the scenes. You want to get technical, Mav and I both started talking about this stuff at the same time. I just use it as my tagline. It's the golden age of gaming. Enjoy it. There again, as somebody who's been gaming for over 4 decades now. I hate saying that, but over 4 decades I've been gaming. There is no better time than right now to enjoy it. So get out there, enjoy those games, play what you love what you play. Thank you all for coming out for the first episode of PM in the PM. For Mav, for myself, we love you all. Nothing but respect, and we'll see you next week, Thursday, PM in the PM. Love you, respect you. Talk to you later.
Bye, everybody.